All right, members, this is the challenge. And I see that we have Vicki Millett and Ron Book from the Homeless Trust here, and we have essentially quorum from the city of Miami Beach. Is the city manager here? I think that it's nice seeing you. I know your son had a wonderful birthday party because we spoke over the weekend. So we've been doing as much work on this as we can. This is the challenge. As stated previously, we entered into an agreement with, I guess, the former city administration to place the food and beverage tax on the ballot. In exchange, we would give them the North Beach CRA. We gave them the North Beach CRA. They subsequently took it off the ballot. From my perspective, and I've spoken to, I think, Mr. Suarez, and I know Mr. Fernandez, and Mr. Magazine, and the manager from time to time. From my perspective, while I would love to have the vote, that's not my goal. That was just the mechanism. I just need the money to help fund the homeless continuum. And so what I've asked is, how would we get to that money? Do we get to that money through the North Beach CRA? Do we get to that money through a motion to reconsider the RDA and tack that money on to, or pull it out of the RDA surplus? How do we get to actually funding the homeless continuum? So I don't have a preference. I just need to know how we're going to get there. And I wanted us to have these conversations now because, and this goes to your point, Commissioner Steinberg, if we lose this leverage point now, the only option we have is the North Beach CRA. So we don't have the RDA as an option after this meeting. After this meeting, it's going to have to be the North Beach CRA. So I just wanted us to have all the options before us while we were making decisions. You're recognized, Commissioner Steinberg.
Are we officially on 11A20 then?
We're on a discussion item. We're discussing everything.
You bring up the North Beach CRAs.
Yeah, it's discussion item.
So, I mean, because I'm going to be moving to defer the North Beach CRA item, and I'm going to tell you why. First of all, as I said before, the North Beach community is unaware. Second of all, that North Beach CRA doesn't even have any funds in it yet. It was just created, and I'm not even aware of any agreement that was made, and I've asked the city to provide me that agreement in writing. Where is it? So I'm unaware of that agreement. I'm not saying there wasn't one. I'm unaware of it. I need to do my due diligence, and regardless, I don't know that that should be on the table for today's discussion, and I'm happy to have the discussion next month, or actually, we meet twice a month, so we get to have it in 2 weeks. Should you so choose to. So I move that.
Well, we're on the discussion item now. That's the first thing. The second thing is, I'm assuming that you could just call Dan Gilbert and ask him. I know that the commissioners out there, while they weren't previously aware, I know they are aware now that the agreement existed. The question isn't whether the agreement existed. The question is whether they knew it was an agreement when they actually took it off the ballot. But in any case, while you say there's no money, ma'am, you can actually take your seat. In any case, if you say that North Beach shouldn't be, and I agree, my preference is not North Beach. My preference is the RDA. I have North Beach on there because of options, or in turn, my preference is any other funding source that we can get money from for homelessness. I don't care where the money comes from. I'm not, and so when you say, hey, when you say, well, we shouldn't be looking at North Beach, tell me what to look at. Because ultimately, if you don't tell me what to look at, I'm going to ask you to go ahead and increase the millage on the general fund now. Because ultimately, we're going to run into a wall on this. We're going to be forced to pay for things out of the general fund that we are not prepared to pay for. We're counting on their participation. And so if you could just direct us where you want me to look for money at.
Right. So, and I appreciate the question. And at the end of the day, we all know that we can't unilaterally make any changes to any interlocal agreement. So at the end of the day, whatever we do here, the city of Miami Beach, or whatever city that we ever enter into any interlocal with, would have to also agree, because it takes two to execute an agreement, as you know. And I think we heard from the city of Miami Beach that they're willing to have a dialogue. I don't know what that looks like at this point. I'm open to the conversation. You know that I have shown in my time, not just on this dais, but my time as the city of Miami Beach commissioner, a support for our homelessness and the population that I always have supported and always look for funding. So at the end of the day, I think we need to find a path forward. Yes, I don't know what that is, but I still remain, and I will wait procedurally until the item is called, because I do believe that it's a greater conversation to have, and we want to be transparent about it. And the timing of putting an item on at the 9th hour, I don't think is very transparent.
Okay, and while I appreciate at the end of the day argument, we're not at the end of the day. We actually are at the beginning of the day, or at least in the middle of that. And I'm not talking about the physical time of the day. I'm talking about how we actually structure where we are in this argument, because the path that we determine right now limits it. And so if you're saying that,
I'm not talking about the other item. I'm just talking specific to the North Beach.
Well, and that's what I'm about to say. If you're saying that North Beach shouldn't be something we look at, I just need to know where we should look. And while I appreciate, you know, your comments that you've always tried to find money for homelessness, and I appreciate the commissioners from Miami Beach comments that they always want to find money for homelessness, it's difficult when people say they always want to find something, but they never actually find it. They want to support something, but they don't actually support it. So I can't fund the system on good intentions. We need actual money. And so if it's not the North Beach CRA, I'm completely comfortable with that. If somebody suggested a food and beverage tax, I'm completely open to whatever it is, but I just need us to know before any of our options go away. The North Beach CRA is not a priority. And the reason I said we can defer it is because that's an item we can bring back any time. Because you're right, there's not a lot of money in it now. But because there's not a lot of money in it now, what are we going to do for the instant? What are we going to do in 2025 to actually start to fill gaps in the homeless trust? What are we going to do then? So that's why the RDA is there, thinking maybe we could look at surplus there. I don't know. I don't know the answer. That's why I brought it to the board to have the discussion and have the options available to everyone. So if you could give me an idea about where we could come up with the money, I'm comfortable going wherever you want me going, wherever. Or if you say that the county should just foot the bill, and it's the will of this body that the county foot the bill, then I'm willing for you all to do that also.
I'll do.
Chairman, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman, not so much on the discussion itself, but I think we're going in circles. I think what Commissioner Steinberg, and I don't want to speak on your behalf, Commissioner, but I think what she's saying is she just needs some time. I think she needs some time to kind of wrap her head around this. And I think you're kind of saying we're a little bit out of time. Well, because of the reconsideration item. We're out of time because of the reconsideration. If we don't make a motion to reconsider the RDA today, we don't have another opportunity to do it. This is it. So if we don't do that today, then it has to be the North Beach CRA or another funding source. So, which I'm open to. You just got to tell me what we're doing, or at least go into this with our eyes open that we're actually assuming the risk. We're actually assuming the risk of not getting the money back. Commissioner.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, there are multiple things we need to consider, the RDA and the CRA being two of them. You know, as I said, I worked through to the best of my ability. It's probably not completely perfect, you know, all of the programs, but there's a couple things we need to look at. Right now, the Homeless Trust applies for grants on behalf and then has the City of Miami Beach as sub-grantees. So when they say they spend $4 million on homelessness, 2.7 of that $1 million comes from HUD. I think we need to make sure that those HUD grants, now the sub-grantee on those grants comes to Miami-Dade County. And we certainly might be able to administer those, you know, continue to help folks experiencing homelessness on Miami Beach. But I just want to give you a couple of facts. Over the past 10 years, clients 5,351 clients whose homeless encounters began in the City of Miami Beach in shelter received 439,689 bed nights, right? They did not pay the food and beverage proceeds. We did, right? All of your communities did. I did. Every time I eat at a restaurant, I paid for it. And so that's about $15 million. This document I passed out lists all kinds of other things the city of Miami Beach has never paid for. Now, they do provide some shelter beds, so that's really good, and I appreciate that. I hope there's a little more. But permanent supportive housing is not something that they tend to participate in. So as we have worked throughout Miami-Dade County, almost 11% of the homeless individuals that are in permanent supportive housing originated in Miami Beach. And that has cost us over $27 million. So these costs are real, and they're in the tens of millions of dollars. And with the new state laws, they're going to get worse. So, Mr. Chairman, on the South Beach RDA, the item that you have on here today gives me great pause for a couple of reasons. Sorry. Okay. Yeah, I just want to make sure the vice chairman also hears this. So the item as written gives me pause. I am open to reopening what we passed last time because the city of Miami Beach will be getting an annual payment for its convention center hotel, and we could do a very simple thing of just making sure that that redirection of that payment comes to Miami-Dade County for homeless services. And that would be no cost to the county. Right now, if we take $15 million out of that Miami Beach RDA, 44% of that we're paying. Right, that's county money. So again, it's just the county taxpayers that continue to pay this. But so that might be one change. In the long run, we have to find a way to minimize the expenses in the North Beach RDA. Because we are going to have to be making up for the lack of contributions from the city of Miami Beach. Of course, the city of Miami Beach could amend their budget to come up with the $12 to $15 million that was projected to come from people buying whatever, a soda or a Coke, which I just bought yesterday, so I also have helped just in the past 24 hours. So there's money. It has to be found. But I'm open to, on the Miami Beach RDA, I would withdraw if it were me, which I'm not you, I would withdraw the existing one. I would be open to a motion to remove and then make sure that at a minimum the payment for the convention center hotel is sent to Miami-Dade County for us to do with to provide homeless services, and that we still have to work. And then I do have a motion prepared. When you're ready for that, I would like the county mayor to identify all discretionary funds that go to municipalities that do not participate in the food and beverage tax, which are 3 right now. I just want to know what we're spending so we can take a deep dive look at that. And I'd like to have that within 30 days. So I would move that we prepare a list of these discretionary funds, just so we know.
Okay, it's been moved and I'll take the motion now. It's been moved and seconded. That's simple enough. It's just direction to the mayor. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed. Okay, let's show that done. Commissioner Higgins, Commissioner Steinberg, and to my colleagues, very often when we have these issues before you, I do have a place where I want us to land. I do not have a landing spot for this. So if wherever you want us to look for the money, that's where we're going to look for the money. This is my only challenge is the RDA is off the table after this meeting. But if we're going to do the RDA, do the RDA. If you don't want to do North Beach, I don't know where we land on this. So I need to know what the comfort level of this board is, but I do know that we need to find a way to start to think about plugging this gap. So I'm open to any motions, to any suggestion for any pots of money. If Miami Beach wants to give ideas, I've been listening to their ideas. I'm okay with that also. I don't have a landing spot for this. I don't have the answer. Steinberg and then Cohen-Higgins.
I don't, okay. Look, I understand the frustration. Believe me. And obviously, I'm not defending anybody's actions. It doesn't matter, I think, here whether we agree or disagree with the actions at this moment. We almost need to take the emotion out of it to just really look at and get some context. Let me just take it down a step. The reason why Miami Beach, Surfside, and Bal Harbor haven't historically contributed to the 1% homeless tax is because they already have, I believe, a 2% tourism tax. So over the years, they were exempted. Now, we always have to take a look at things again, right? That was done in the early 90s, and I think it was great to take another look at it. And that tax funds the GMCVB, and it's created the tourism industry we know today. But I also think about this. I think about home rule and how we constantly keep doing this to municipalities when we don't agree with something. And how many times we get upset with Tallahassee when they don't like our policies and then they try to preempt us. I'm not going to obviously be supporting, we cannot support any sort of changes to contracts unilaterally. So I think we do need to have Miami Beach come up and speak to find a path forward. But what I will say is there are so many things that we need to be doing, but I think we need to de-escalate. I think we need to take the steps to truly find an outcome that we wish to see. Honestly, we need to help the homeless situation, but I think the way we're going about it isn't going to do that because we're going to come up with all these things that we want to do and change agreements after they've been agreed to, and then Miami Beach is going to say, well, we're not going to agree to that. So then we're back in the same place. So I think we need to really try, if we really want to help the issue, if we really want to move forward, I think we need to look at all options, and I think we need to call people up from Miami Beach. Maybe it's a moment where you sit down in the room with them, you're so passionate about this issue, and rightfully so, and they can pick someone from the city of Miami Beach and really try to come up with a path forward. You know, it was not a unanimous decision to rescind a vote. There are people who still believe that that may be on the table. There may still be an opportunity for that, but there may not be. So I can't speak for them. I can only speak to what is in front of me today, and I don't know that the manner in which we're conducting ourselves today is the most productive. Now, I do think we need to find a resolution, and maybe that resolution comes from, we can call, if you give me permission, the city manager. Maybe they can come up with a proffered idea that they can come back to us after they've met with their commission. Because I don't even know that any one commissioner can speak unilaterally for the entire city commission either.
Commissioner, so I'm trying to curate the words to say this to you. It's not for a lack of effort on our part. It's not for lack of effort. So I am not a Miami Beach resident or politician. I am not necessarily familiar with, though I have become intimately familiar with their politics. It is not for lack of effort trying to find a direct path. I don't bring things to the dais normally with this ain't the solution, or I don't have a solution. I've tried. I've had the conversations with them. They need to kumbaya. They need to kumbaya. It's not us. We're literally open to anything. We're just looking for a number. But they have different ways that they think they should get there, and they don't necessarily agree, I don't think. So I don't know what you would have me do. We cannot hear the items, but as long as we're clear on something. We just need to be clear that after the day, if we don't amend the RDA that we passed last week, the Convention Center Hotel, that's no longer an option. That's no longer an option after the day. That means after the day, if we want to get funds out of the increment, and this isn't home rule. This isn't a home rule issue. This is money we send to them. The increment value isn't just their value; it's ours. Well, I wasn't asking for any of their money. I was asking for the money that we contribute to the TIF, because we need to use that in the general fund to fund homelessness. I'm not asking for anything that they contributed. So that money was not their money. That's the money. That was our contribution. But if that's not the answer, then somebody needs to tell me the answer, or we could let it go. But as we let it go, I'm just one of 13. We will bear the responsibility of this equally, though. We're going to bear the responsibility of the fact that we let it go. And in April, when the administration brings us some numbers and they say we need to do this, and you're going to be like, hey, well, what do we need to increase this money for? Well, why are you recommending? These decisions will have implications when we do the budget. I just want us to be clear of not acting. Regalado.
Thank you. And Commissioner Steinberg, I
I'm sorry, she was next.
Oh, no, that's Commissioner Steinberg, I understand your points, but I think, and like you said, the issue is the North Beach CRA doesn't have any funding, so that puts us in a difficult situation. I understand also that some of the elected officials spoke and that they have issues with the homeless trust. Those issues are not our problem. Those issues are not our problem, right? You know, I have faith in the homeless trust. I believe that the work that they're doing is good work. I served on the Chapman Partnership, you know. And I asked folks who have these issues to come out with us on Thanksgiving. Commissioner Gilbert was with me last Thanksgiving, and we went to the different centers and we served and we talked to those folks. So, you know, if you have an issue with these things, you need to resolve it as an elected official. That being said, we did pass Lifeman and we did fund Lifeman. You know, we have been doing this work, and I say it as the person who worked on it, right? We find ourselves in a difficult situation because the law has also changed. At the state level, we're dealing with difficult compliance in terms of where we put the homeless, how we pay for it, you know, what we do with the unhoused. And we definitely do not want to put them in our jail system. So whatever issues historically occurred, you know, with these municipalities, respectfully, I think they need to get over it. And I think that folks need to proffer solutions instead of complaints. So if you don't want us to take it from here, tell us where you want to take it from. It's a very simple relationship technique. If I ask Commissioner Higgins out to lunch and she's unavailable on Friday, she would say, but I could do Monday. And I would check my calendar and we would figure it out. Same idea, very basic. If you do not like the funding that we're considering, proffer something else. If you have issues with the homeless trust, proffer something that allows you some level of confidence with that. But don't just say that you have issues and not pay your piece of this burden. We have discussed how unequitable the homeless trust burden is, you know, for this community. We've discussed it in terms of funding. We've discussed it in terms of placement of facilities. And the reality is that everyone has to take their piece of this problem. And I understand that the economy is such where people don't want to do this right now. But because the economy is such, we have to do this right now. Because as we have discussed, this is no longer just about people who are mentally ill. This is also about homeless seniors and an ever-increasing homeless population as a result of our affordability crisis. So it's a difficult decision to make, but this is one of those moments where elected officials are asked not to gauge consensus, but to build consensus. So that my question, you know, to our partners is where do you find that money? And where do they feel comfortable placing that money that alleviates the burden that we have been placing on our residents? Because as members of this board, if we take on this responsibility, we place this on every other resident outside Miami Beach, and that is not fair. So I agree with the chair in that we have to make a decision and we have to be cognizant of what that decision is, but I think people have to proffer other options. If there's other funding options, phenomenal. Let's have that conversation. But that the beach must pay its fair share of this burden, I think that's the first vote we need to take here. We need to go across the board and all decide, are we on board that the beach should pay its share, and take it from there, because I think we're talking about apples and oranges here, because we're getting into the how much and from where. And I think as you go around the dais, you're starting to see that everyone thinks that the inequity has to stop at this point. How they get to a solution, we could work that out. Should we limit our options? Never. We should never negotiate against ourselves. But the reality is that, we're not being given other solutions. So, Commissioner, I want to support you, but at the same time, I feel like, we can't continue to carry this burden, because we have been carrying this burden. And honestly, putting something on the ballot and not letting people vote, I mean, it's just like the optics are horrible, right? It's a difficult thing. Like, why not let people vote? You could have come up here and said the residents of Miami Beach voted and they said no, right? I mean, that could have been the outcome. This morning, we could have had that conversation. And we could have been like, wow, we put it on the ballot in Miami Beach. They voted against it. What do we do now, right? But we were not given the option to do that. And I think that that's also something that needs to be said. Because there was a lot that got us to this point. So I really hope that we can find a solution. I don't want to unravel, everything, but I think that, we have a crisis of confidence here, and there really needs to be something proffered that's tangible and that can undo some of this.
Bastian, and then, no, I'm sorry. Hold on. No. Cohen Higgins. She's right next to me. Cohen Higgins, and then Bastian, and then Gonzalez.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a number of thoughts and questions that I want to go over here, and I want to start by saying I'm not in favor of reconsidering the RDA and bringing that back for a vote. I think that took 7 years to get to the point where we were at the last hearing. The sponsoring commissioner worked on that diligently for a very, very long time, and there are a lot of business interests attached to that. So I'm not in support of reconsidering the RDA that we just approved at our last hearing. But I think it's important that we think about what it is, again, that we're considering. We are assuming that the vote, had it been counted, would have been in favor of this tax. I don't know how we make that assumption. Bal Harbour voted 67% against this 1% tax. So while we're criticizing the city of Miami Beach, the elected officials there, the people that put them there, that had them serve as the voice of that community, those elected officials said, we do not like this 1% tax. We don't think it's transparent. We don't like the language that's associated with it. We are going to usurp that, and instead we are going to make a decision on behalf of the voters, and the decision that we're going to make is one that's going to assume that the voters of Miami Beach want this 1% tax. I think the optics of that is even more egregious. While the public records request may have indicated that 52% voted yes, that was prior to Election Day. That's not a full vote count of the voices of Miami Beach. And when I speak with the commissioners of Miami Beach, it's my understanding that they are open to putting a ballot question back before the voters for a 2026 election. But with wording that is different, with more transparency, with more safeguards, with provisions and language that they as a body feel is more reflective of what is actually going to take place should the tax pass. And so while we sit here and say we need a landing place, we need to understand how and where we're going to get this money, because we need to get this money, it makes me ask and question about the money. The Homeless Trust has $138 million this year we passed $138 million for the Homeless Trust. Okay. In multiple news articles, the Homeless Trust is quoted by saying that this tax would have generated $10 million. We've heard on the dais $12 to $15 million. The item before us, 11A19, quotes $15 million. But when I ask our Office of Budget and others within the county, where is that estimate coming from? I can't get an answer. So I need to understand, because we're all talking about $10, $15 million, but I don't have an answer as to what and who is coming up with this estimate. We don't know what that tax would be and what it would amount to if this thing would have passed. So we're relying on a lot of assumptions, assuming the voters of Miami Beach would have agreed to this, assuming that the annual value is between $10 and $15 million. Is there someone that can come to the podium and explain to me how it is that anyone, including the Homeless Trust, calculated that the annual revenue estimated to be generated by this tax, should it have passed, would equal $10 to $15 million? Because I have not been able to find that answer. Can anyone come to the podium and explain to me how you calculated that the estimate for this annual amount is $10 to $15 million?
Mr. Book, you're recognized.
Mr. Chair, through you, in response to the question, Ron Book, 4000 Hollywood Boulevard, Hollywood, in my role as chairman of the Miami-Dade County Homeless Trust. In conversations over the last 18 months between the tax collector's office and the commission's former budget director, I think that's what her title was, Jennifer Glazer Moon, those numbers were arrived at based on their estimates, taking all of the restaurants that they believed had a alcohol license as distinguished from a beer and wine license, and those restaurants that grossed over $400,000 or more. That's where those numbers came from.
Thank you for that, Mr. Book. And I would love to see those estimates because, again, we spoke with the tax collector's office, we spoke with the Office of Management and Budget. We haven't been able to receive anything in writing that actually articulates that that estimate is accurate. So I feel as though we are moving forward on a number of assumptions that causes great concern for me, where we don't have clarification from the voters. And if someone from the city of Miami Beach can approach and let me know whether or not there is an interest in bringing this ballot question back before the voters of Miami Beach, but framed in a way that the current sitting commission feels comfortable with, that would be helpful to me as well. And while I understand and I'm sympathetic to the argument that has been made that a prior deal was made, and you don't get North Beach CRA if you don't get this ballot question, and Commissioner Suarez, I'm happy to have you approach if you would like. I am perplexed by why with the number of attorneys that sit on this dais and the amount of business that we do here in Miami-Dade County, why that provision would not be included in the interlocal agreement is extremely perplexing to me. If that was a critical part of the deal, it makes no sense why it was not reduced to writing. So Commissioner Suarez, if you don't mind approaching, or anyone, maybe be the city manager, I'm interested in whether or not you all are a hard no on contributing to...
Commissioner Suarez, hold on for a second. Commissioner, don't recognize people from this. I would prefer a commissioner, not a manager, come
Whomever.
forward, because he's one of his peers. They're equally commissioners. The administrator is someone who we probably need to be talking to on this.
I'm happy to recognize whomever can answer the question, Mr. Chairman. I'm interested in the position of Miami Beach, whether it's through the manager, the mayor, the commission, or the commissioners. Is it the position of Miami Beach that you all are not going to contribute, or is it the position that you want clarity and different language to be placed before the voters?
Through the chair, Honorable Chairman, Commissioners, Madam Mayor, Eric Carpenter, City Manager, City of Miami Beach. We are very interested in trying to find solutions from the City of Miami Beach. Unfortunately, at this point in time, I don't have direction from my policymakers on any one specific item, but I think that we are absolutely open to having those discussions, finding the correct solution. I've had multiple conversations with Mr. Book. I've had a conversation with the chair. Thank you for taking my call this weekend. And obviously, the City of Miami Beach understands that there's a need in this community. We are wanting to be part of the solution. I believe in my heart of hearts that we are currently part of the solution. We budget over $5.2 million annually towards homeless services, and obviously this would have generated a significant amount of additional dollars. We had an agreement with Mr. Book that if this item were to be put on the ballot and to pass, that a portion of those funds would go back to the city of Miami Beach. Obviously, we feel like if there's a delta there that we can contribute to help the betterment of the community, we're absolutely willing to have those conversations, and I would love to be part of that solution.
Thank you for that explanation. You know, I don't feel comfortable moving forward with a solution as we sit here as a body today without confirmation of the numbers that this tax would potentially create and whether or not the voters of Miami Beach want this tax imposed upon themselves when that was the original terms of the deal. It wasn't that we were going to force the tax on you. It was that we would put it to the voters. The voters have not yet spoken on that. And in that regard, and I don't feel comfortable imposing that decision on the voters of Miami Beach. So until I have clarity on what this tax would actually generate and what the will of the voters of Miami Beach have to say, and some level of understanding as to why this critical agreement was never reduced to writing by way of an interlocal, I don't feel comfortable. I feel much more aligned with Commissioner Steinberg on this issue, that a conversation needs to happen with Miami Beach where you all and we all or the chairman sit down in a room, figure out how to move forward in a more collaborative way. This feels far more punitive than it does productive. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And thank you. Just for clarification, you hang out there because I think someone else had another question for you. Just for clarification, we're not talking about imposing a tax at this point. We're not talking about imposing a tax. We're talking about generating revenue. We're not talking about imposing a tax. So I don't know where that's. We're not imposing a tax on anyone.
Okay, no. To be clear, what was before the voters of Miami Beach was whether or not they wanted a 1% tax. Correct? That would have generated an estimate of $10 to $15 million. We are now saying we're going to find $10 to $15 million elsewhere in replacement of that tax because they never voted for it themselves. I know that we're not imposing a tax. I understand that we are not doing that, but the voters of Miami Beach have not yet decided whether or not they want that for themselves.
I mean, that is a rich argument considering they took it off the ballot. They took it off the ballot. They stopped them from considering it.
But then we're making an affirmative decision.
Considering it.
How do we know that they would have wanted it?
It was winning, but in any case, we didn't make the deal to. I didn't say when I asked for this. I didn't say I wasn't guaranteeing that they passed it. I said let the people vote. I trust the residents of Miami Beach to do the right thing. I was trusting the residents of Miami Beach to do the right thing. I didn't ask them to implement it. I said let them vote. That's all. We gave you the North Beach CRA, Miami Beach, in exchange for the vote, not the guarantee. They stopped it in the middle, so to say now that we can't find the money elsewhere because they stopped it, they could just stop it next time or never put it in there again. That's not a workable solution. Hardeman, then Regalado.
Bastian.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. I've been following this discussion with a lot of attention, and I'm perplexed. I was shocked, perplexed and shocked, I must say. I was shocked when, in the middle of residents of Miami Beach voting, the city commission decided to pull the item. Why would you do that? Why not let the residents vote? This seems so unspeakable and malicious to me. And I've been listening to you with a lot of attention, Commissioner, and I understand where you're coming from. But there has to be a point where people and leaders who are elected to serve the people take responsibility for their residents. I think for too long, we at Miami-Dade County, we've been footing the bill. We have been footing the bill. The burden of solving homelessness should be shared countywide because it is a countywide problem. We cannot address homelessness as a us versus them issue because, statistically speaking, almost 60% of our residents, 60%, listen to this, let that sink for a minute, 60% of the residents are one crisis away from homelessness. This is not an issue we need to play with. We know how many people in Miami-Dade County, including the homeless, have begged us. They come to my district every week to find a solution. And guess what? We do not have the resources. We do not. We advertise that we do, but we do not. So I believe that we need to prove that Miami-Dade County cares for every resident, including the houseless folks. Homelessness should not be a death sentence for anyone, because researchers show that even children, when they are homeless, they don't thrive physically, emotionally, academically. So homelessness should not be a permanent solution. We have to have the courage not to play politics with this issue. And it seems like Miami Beach has and continues to play politics with this issue. Why would you stop a vote? That I cannot understand it. So I agree with the chair. Today, when we have to find a solution, it cannot fall. I disagree that we should find the money, Commissioner Higgins. I disagree. I think the responsibility should fall on the Miami Beach. They have the responsibility to find these resources to support the homeless. We cannot foot the bill. And I agree, we have to know today. And it seems I don't like the fact that we seem to have our back against the wall, and that's what they wanted. Commissioner Steinberg, I believe that's what they wanted. They want to put our back against the wall, and I don't like that. I never like that. So I think the burden is on you. The burden is on you. Commissioner Cohen-Higgins asked you the question. You said, oh, your leaders, your elected officials, you don't know. No. Today we have to be clear. We have to find a solution, and I do not think that the burden should be on us. It should not be. You have to take some responsibilities. We've been supporting the homeless folks. And then pertaining to Ron Book, you got to find a way to work with him. Whether you like him or not, a lot of us on the dais agree that he's been doing a great job. A lot of us agree. At this, where I'm sitting right now, my level of trust is down here. But I trust the work that Ron Book has been doing. So this cannot be, Ron Book and the Homeless Trust should not be a barrier for you not to take responsibilities vis-a-vis the homeless people from your community. That's what leadership is about. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Hardeman, you're recognized.
Mr. Chairman, it is undoubtedly my belief that Miami Beach are messaging masterminds. And I'll tell you why. Miami Beach will tell you, I'm extending you the olive branch, right? Like they did with us regarding the sheriff's issue on Miami Beach. The mayor wrote us, I'm extending Miami-Dade County an olive branch. And then they sent police officers. He didn't come. When I think about what they do on the beach, instead of tackling issues, finding solutions for everyone to be happy and to coexist, Miami Beach repels you. So they do things like suspending the allowance of smoking marijuana on the beach. You know, you all allow that any other time, except when certain people come that you don't appreciate. Then you suspend that. Miami Beach will and have and continue to use special prosecutors and a special court to prosecute those who are arrested for certain crimes in the area. They find their way to spend their tax dollars on keeping individuals away from the beach. They're going to find their way to continue to be against some sort of rail system coming to the beach. Why democratize transportation? I mean, Miami Beach doesn't want that. Miami Beach continues to show me who they are, right? But what we need to do on this board is just believe them. And so what are we talking about now? We're talking about a beach, a government that promised us something for an action of us. And like good government, we believe them and we engage into I would just describe it as an agreement with them and take them at their word. And what they do is move forward as if they are following through with their promise, and then undemocratically change the course of its history by simply removing it from the ballot. Simply taking the vote away from the people. Something as simple as, the people may decide that they don't want to tax themselves, but maybe that they're benevolent. Maybe they are benevolent in and of itself. Maybe the people who live within the beach, who vote in your community, say, you know what, we want to assist, we want to actually do something that is good for people who are experiencing homelessness in our territory. I know what they do instead, because we've seen it. We know that Miami Beach has had police officers take homeless people from Miami Beach and drop them in other areas. We know that. We know that the first stop across the bridge is Miami. I used to represent Miami. Go figure. I've heard this before, not just from residents and homeless people that I've personally represented, but also from police officers who work for Miami. So this is the beach that I'm dealing with. So you have to excuse me if I don't take someone's word for it when they tell me, listen, I know we're friendly. I promise you we have a solution. I promise you that we're going to deliver on the promises that we're making. How and why should I believe you? In my family, and I'm sure in a lot of other families, there's this term that people say when people give you this sort of information. We say, you're pissing on my head and telling me that it's raining. That's what Miami Beach does to me. Look, I don't mind eating your lunch. I say it from day to day. Ever since I was a Miami City Commissioner, I want your business. I watch your businesses close, all of your restaurants. Count them. Watch them open in Miami. Watch them open in the Design District, Wynwood. Watch them open in Little Haiti. Watch. Because you're destroying your own community because of the laws that you put on the books. You think you're serving a certain group and you think it's going to end a certain way because you've devised this plan. But all of your marketing won't amount to the success that you all want it to be. You know why? Because the heart is not pure. Miami Beach must pure its heart to serve people. They must fight for the right reasons. That's the aim that Miami Beach must find. If Miami Beach can find that, then you can survive a punch in the face or two. If you can say, hey, don't worry about that. We have good partners in Miami-Dade County. We made a mistake. We'll do better. But Miami Beach doesn't want to do better. Miami Beach celebrates in its cruelty towards people. They celebrate when they raise your towing expenses 3 times and 4 times as much. And you miss your doctor's appointments, and your children don't make it to Miami City Ballet. When the garages are closed, they celebrate. The businesses suffer, and the beach celebrates because of some supposed moral victory that it has in keeping people from coming to the beach. And I think because of that, Miami Beach will suffer. And so when our chairperson says, hey, maybe we should reconsider this, not because that we want to punish Miami Beach, no. But at least we want to keep some sort of leverage so that we can have the ability to fund the things that matter to the people of Miami-Dade County. And that should matter to the beach. Because the last time that I was on the beach, you have homelessness. They're everywhere. And it's not because you make it easy for them there. No. Of course not. I mean, Miami Beach probably has some of the best move-on pressure that I've seen in the state of Florida. You all know what move on means, right? Miami Beach does that very, very well. And look, and I don't want a community that's full of homelessness. I don't want a community that's full of people who don't want to follow the law either, who don't want to follow the law, who post tents in areas where it's unsafe for people and you can't walk by. I don't want that either. But what we do as responsible governors, if you will, is we create policy that helps us find ways to help them. And then you have some people who are not willful in accepting existence, sure. And we don't allow them to break the law, and we use the law to our favor. But what Miami Beach does is different from that. Well, we have to admit it. I think once we begin the process of admittance, then we could probably start the process of really just forgiveness. And once we have forgiveness, then maybe we can actually come up with a solution that makes sense for all of us. But to ask me to trust you, to ask me to believe that you're going to do the right thing when you're telling me by your actions that you're doing something completely different. Look, I was in favor of the RDA that passed. I was in favor of it. I mean, this I think is a good thing. I mean, I was in Miami City when we were trying to pass a convention center hotel, and this board stopped us from having it. It wasn't the board itself. It was a person on the board. Simply because they didn't like what we were doing in Miami. And what we were doing was moving the government forward, moving the community forward. So I'm never, and I fight for positions that don't try to be onerous on municipalities for no reason but politics. But you have to admit to me, there are many reasons besides politics and to keep Miami Beach at bay from doing the things that Miami Beach has been doing. I think you have some good commissioners. I think there are a few of them that I've had personal conversations with that I think that can govern well. But that does not mean that we won't disagree on many issues. And so Miami Beach has defined who their audience is. And defining who your audience is has to go further than whether or not you're going to lose an election. Because I will guarantee you that I'm going to fight for what I believe in no matter the election results. I think that's the right thing to do. So in this case, where we are today, I'm in favor of the chairman's motion. Or if Commissioner Higgins has a motion that also just doesn't move to reconsider to kill agreements, but if we need that agreement in order for us to generate the cash because you all don't want to contribute, then that's what we use it for. But other than Miami Beach actually come up with some sort of resolution to ensure that they're assisting with helping homelessness in this community, I don't see the way forward. At least I don't. And so I think I'm very plain about the issue, Mr. Chairman, and I know that we were considering which way to go, but I'm open for the conversation about where we go and how we get there, and open to the conversation of maintaining some sense of really bargaining power in this matter without giving all of our experience and opportunities over to Miami Beach.
For a second, Commissioner Hardiman. Hey, excuse me. If you're speaking at the door, like the lobbyists who are actually having conversations at the door of the chambers now, if you could stop speaking or walk outside. If you don't have a seat, find one, unless you have a badge and a gun. But this idea that you're going to just be talking, that's not what's going to happen. This is the only time I'm going to say it. One of those guys over there are going to tap you on the shoulder and escort you out. Go ahead, Commissioner Hardiman.
Yeah, I give the floor.
Okay.
I have a question.
Okay. Wait, hold. I think Gonzalez was next. I think so.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
And then Jay-Z, and then the senator, and then Raquel. I think that was the order. And then Keone, and then, yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I do have to agree with a lot of what Commissioner Hardiman said, and before him, Commissioner Eileen Higgins and the chair said, because I feel like we're between a rock and a hard place right now. I think there's great folks at Miami Beach. You know, I have friends that are on the commission, and they're great people. And I happen to know that everybody on this commission wants to solve the homeless problem. And I think that everybody on the Miami Beach Commission wants to solve the homeless problem and wants to help as much as possible. But we cannot give up any type of bargaining chip that we may have in order to have that conversation. So I guess what my question would be, because the reason that we're in this hard place is because if we don't make a decision today, we're no longer going to have the ability to bring up those RDA funds. So if I can have the city manager come back up, is there any proposition as to any funding or any funding source from the city of Miami Beach in order to cover, for lack of a better word, that fair share? Is there any proposition as to where these funds can come from? Because otherwise, I mean, we're really stuck between a rock and a hard place. Because the funding source was going to be what was on that ballot, and it was pulled off that ballot. I'm sure there are reasons, but you can understand how facetious it looks. So is there any funding source that the city of Miami Beach has that they can propose at this late hour?
So, Commissioner, obviously I understand the perspectives. I understand the comments that have been made. I can't say that I agree with all of them, but I can understand the perspectives. The challenge that I'm faced with, and I'm not saying that that's your problem, it's my problem, is that I don't have any policy direction from my board, and they are the ones who control the purse strings of the city. And so I can't tell you as we stand here today that I can fund it from this pot or this pot or this pot. What I would say is if we can somehow be given a little bit of time, maybe come back to the November 20th meeting, I think that between now and then I could have a meeting of my board and have some clear proposals that we could make to this body.
So I understand what you're saying, right? But at the same time, if I understand Commissioner Higgins' motion correctly, if we do that, then we can no longer use the funding that we have to allocate for that fair share. And I'm sorry, is that correct? If the chair would allow, is that correct, Commissioner Higgins?
There's nuances to that. So I think after we hear everybody, there's the South Beach RDA, which has specific obligations that now and bear in mind, we graciously gave the city of Miami Beach $75 million at our last meeting, right? And they took that money, the same meeting, they decided to reject outright aiding vulnerable individuals. So there is that. There is the North Beach RDA, which is a newer CRA, which is a newer entity, which the county chose before you were on the commission to invest and reinvest some countywide tax dollars in there. That that budget is not quite large yet, but at the end of the day, as Commissioner Hardiman mentioned, we have a very uneven playing field here. The city of Miami Beach takes, but they don't always want to participate in the giving back to the greater good on countywide issues. And as you know, I really am the one sitting between a rock and a hard place because I represent one municipality where I can tell you there are many good and wonderful people who did vote yes before this was dragged off the ballot unnecessarily. But that municipality, how they deal with the homelessness, they want to deal with homelessness is by exporting the homeless to the other city I represent, which is the city of Miami. And the city of Miami not only contributes with this food and beverage tax, they contribute with their property, right? We have many facilities, Camilla's House, Lotus House, that I go on the list, the jail, all of which could be generating property tax revenue and don't. And the other way recently, very new, the city of Miami Beach has now started to export these people not to services, but to our jail. They have already this year sent 172 people to jail for public camping. And that is a much more expensive way. So they're not contributing to the providing of homeless services through the food and beverage tax, right? Which would be how we would get them supportive services and temporary housing and shelter and getting into permanent supportive housing. Instead, they're shepherding people directly into jail, where the cost of that is 10 times the cost of a shelter bed. And again, they're not contributing extra for that. They are just overleasing our jails relative to other municipalities. So it's an imbalance, and I really am between a rock and a hard place, because I represent these folks, but then they're affecting the other municipality that I represent financially and quality of life wise.
Commissioner, I can only imagine, because I, like Commissioner Hardeman, voted for the funding for the convention center, and your leadership towards that funding, which I think was spectacular, was the primary reason why I considered that, right? And which, by the way, I would love to see that move forward, because I think that we need to be able to compete in that sector. I definitely would love to see us move forward. And I apologize, don't want to waste time, but I do want to have this conversation with you, Commissioner, because I don't want to lose that as a bargaining chip either. And it seems like the city manager is up here trying to show good faith, saying that there may be a way for them to fund that. But at the same time, to the chairman's point, he understands the procedure very, very well. And we don't want to lose the opportunity to be able to hold that bargaining chip. Is there a way, and I'm just posing this question, you're taking leadership here, but is there a way for us to perhaps reconsider to hold off on that decision, so we don't lose that bargaining chip, and then have enough time to sit down with the city of Miami Beach to come up with a way to properly fund this, so that everybody can kumbaya, as our chairman so rightfully says.
Commissioner, before you respond, let me just say this. We've been joined by two of our constitutional officers that were recently elected, our clerk and comptroller, Juan Fernandez Burkeen, and our property appraiser. I don't see Mayor Regalado. Tomas Regalado? He was here just a second ago. I saw him. Oh, he's here. You all clap for him anyway. He's here.
He's coming. He's coming.
All right, so, Mayor, congratulations, Mr. Property Appraiser. Congratulations, Mr. Clerk and Comptroller.
Mr. Chair, a point of personal privilege. Congrats, Dad.
So, all right. Commissioner Higgins, I know we're on your response. We have a lot of people in the queue. I want us to find a way to land this plane. And let me just say this. This is not a conversation where I'm going to talk bad about Miami Beach. If I were going to talk bad about Miami Beach, I would start in other areas. I'm not, this isn't it. I don't have anything against any of you all. I just need to solve the problem. My goal is to solve the problem today, or to keep our options available on solving the problem. That's what I want when I've spoken to each of your commissioners. That's what I've said to them. That's my admonition to Mr. Book. I just want the problem solved, because we ultimately have to provide the service. And Commissioner Higgins brings up a very valid point. Housing homeless people in our jail, first of all, is not humane, but it's also extraordinarily an expensive proposition. And Miami Beach has the second highest number of unhoused persons in the county. So as we consider these things, there is a financial consequence to this. You're recognized to respond.
Yes. So colleagues, I think I can listen to everyone else, but within the South Beach RDA, I do believe there is a resolution. We could reconsider that in a manner that would not affect the Convention Center Hotel. For the coming years before the Convention Center Hotel is completed, at the end of each budget year in that RDA, the City of Miami Beach takes about $8 million out of that and puts it into its general fund. We could simply reconsider the item, amend the interlocal that any surplus at the end of the year that is due the City of Miami Beach is paid to the county, and the county could only use those funds for homeless services. So if you're amenable to that, I would do that after I hear from everyone else.
Mr. Chair.
Wait, who is? I know there's a line. Who's in line? Who's next? Oh, Bermudez. Bermudez.
I just have a couple of questions, and I'm glad we got on this discussion because I certainly agreed with Commissioner Steinberg on her when she first spoke. But now that we've gone into this a little bit in depth, there's a little bit more to really consider. But I've got a question to the attorneys. It's my understanding that via state statute, sometime in the early 1960s, 3 municipalities in Miami-Dade County were the only ones who were given the right to actually have some sort of hotel tax. I don't know what they call it. Is that correct?
We're not sure. We would have to research that.
Okay, because I know when I tried to do it in Tallahassee for the city of Doral, and Mr. Carpenter was there, by the way, who was the best public works director Doral ever had, so Miami Beach is very lucky. We were not able to do it because the state wouldn't permit us to do it. Now, the second question I would have, let me go back a second. I'm assuming those dollars at the 3 municipalities, the equivalent of a hotel tax, they're used, I'm assuming, for the benefit of those 3 municipalities. Or does anybody know? Maybe Commissioner Steinberg knows. She sat on the dais. There are the bed tax dollars that the state permitted the 3 municipalities, including Miami Beach, to use. Is that put back in the general fund, or is it used for advertising for the beach, et cetera, et cetera? Mr. Chair, could we have the manager answer if possible?
You're recognized.
So we have a separate resort tax fund that those dollars go into that are able to be used in resort tax areas to fund specific services that the city provides that make the city more attractive to visitors.
Okay, so I'm assuming then it's used for that. Now, the question to our attorneys again is, don't we have the equivalent of a hotel or bed tax for the county?
Yes.
Okay, so those 3 municipalities are not part of that tax, is that correct?
Commissioner, can you give us a minute? We have another expert.
Okay, no problem.
Experts on experts on experts.
Yeah, and let me tell you where I'm going. One of my big pet peeves was always that the Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau uses a ridiculously large amount on 2 municipalities and none on everybody else. One of them includes Miami Beach. So obviously, I see it as our tax dollars being used, which I don't have a problem with because I think Miami Beach is one of the most important municipalities in the county. But I'd like to get an answer on that. I'm going to go, look, there is a history to this tax. And when we originally started this discussion, like I said, I was in agreement with supporting the 4-day rule for Commissioner Steinberg, which obviously we passed that already. I think Miami Beach, like many other municipalities, tourism in Miami Beach is important to us as a county as a whole. While I am supportive of the commissioners of each district reflecting their opinions, and I respect them because they're the ones that have great knowledge, and in this case, somebody who really has a lot of knowledge because she always does her homework, Commissioner Higgins, I also don't think that we should be parochial at all times on issues that impact our community. One of them is homelessness. So I find it a little bit incongruent that one municipality came and made a commitment, and we made a decision, at least we made a decision last month or the last meeting, based on what I understood that the commissioner of the district, who had the knowledge, was a very, very, was the positive thing to do because of something else that I also think is of countywide importance, which is a hotel at the Miami Beach Convention Center, or adjacent to or part of, in order to be able to bring more visitors. And I go back to the Greater Miami Convention Visitors Bureau. I don't know if David's in the audience, but, you know, that hotel is critical for the growth not only of Miami Beach, but for us as a county, for as far as tourism is concerned, which is one of our main industries. The problem that I have, and it's really not a problem, but the reason why I'm kind of changing my mind, and I do share Commissioner Gonzalez's concerns, if we don't discuss this today, then as I see it, or as I understand it, and maybe somebody can clarify it, we're in a situation where we're going to be dependent upon the elected body of Miami Beach, many of who are friends and who I respect, and I know they do a great job representing their community. We're going to be put in a situation where, in order for us to correct this, in order for us to reach an agreement, it could be months, could be 2 months, could be 3 months, or truthfully, they have the right to turn around and say they don't have, there might not be a majority that supports the position of reaching an agreement with the county. So if we are here today negotiating against ourselves, I have a problem with that, and I will be supportive of Commissioner Higgins' efforts to make sure that an issue which is countywide, which is homelessness, doesn't get shortchanged and doesn't become just our responsibility. And an issue which I also consider countywide, because I consider that hotel a countywide issue. I don't consider it just a Miami Beach issue. Because when people come to stay in a convention center hotel and for conventions, they go to other parts of Miami-Dade County too, including Commissioner Hardiman's wonderful areas in the city of Miami. So I'm going to be supportive of what the commissioner of the district wants to do. And the one thing that I will tell you is I hate to be in a situation where we're going to be here. If we have to negotiate against ourselves on a future date, and we have the opportunity today to avoid that, I think we should deal with it today. And in the end, and look, I applaud all the elected officials that are here, and I'm not going to get into the decisions that were made by Miami Beach or not, because I'm not there, so I'm not going to make a determination whether it was right or it was wrong. But I do know that the homeless trust is important to me, and I think to all of us. I do know everybody should share their burden. Nobody should be overburdened. You all know, and I've been very vociferous about the fact that I don't think the city of Doral should pay, with 80,000 people, 100% of a facility that serves the whole county. But that facility is of countywide importance. So you also have a right to opine on it. So in this case, I think that we need to, I don't want us to feel a month from now that we had an opportunity to correct this, and then for some reason, with all due respect to the city manager, who's a friend, I don't want to be sitting here a month from now and say we had our bite at the apple to correct this, and now we don't have a shot to do it. So, Commissioner Higgins, I'll be open to whatever your proposal is to move forward.
Thank you, Commissioner. And Mr. Senator, before I recognize you, I want to have everybody join me in a round welcome and applause to our newly elected State Representative Alina Garcia, to our Supervisor of Elections, also. Please stand. The blonde lady waving to you all. Thank you, Representative, for being here and joining us today. Senator, do you want Commissioner? He's on cue. So, Senator, you're recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, I do want to echo the congratulations to all our newly elected constitutional officers. Fight well fought, and congratulations to all of you. I know you're going to serve us with dignity and pride in Miami-Dade County, so God bless you all. Mr. Chairman, I do think I wish that the vote would have gone through in Miami Beach. I do. I think it's important to always have the people's voices heard. Don't know what led up to the fact that they rescinded this from vote, but I'm sure there was right reasons. Could be. Who knows what the funding mechanisms for these campaigns were, where the money was coming from, who was doing what. We know what money does in campaigns, what it can do, but I think the people's right should always be respected, the people's right to vote. As a matter of fact, when I was in the legislature, I voted to allow the people to vote for the constitutional officers, but when I came down here, I voted against it. I just thought it was the right thing to do, allow the people to choose. However, I don't think two wrongs make a right. I don't think that we now penalize Miami-Dade, the city of Miami Beach, because they rescinded this vote. I don't think, and I won't be supportive of rescinding the RDA agreement or opening up the RDA agreement. I think where we are right now, we have the city manager before us that's saying that we can sit down and have our new city manager, first of all, right? We have a new city commission who were not part of any negotiations, any deals that were made in the past. I wasn't part of any of those conversations. This is the first time that I'm hearing of those conversations. And granted, we have a chairman that was part of those conversations and meetings, and this is why you're seeing the reaction that you're seeing here. He feels that Miami Beach didn't keep their end of the deal. Homelessness is a county-wide issue, but so is mental health. And I'll tell you, the building that we have before us was sold as a mental health facility, which now is going to be turned into a homeless shelter in the future. Fine, right, wrong, or indifferent. We made a commitment to the voters of Miami-Dade that we were going to turn this into a mental health facility. But because the laws changed, things changed. Now we're before us, and we know that the Homeless Trust is looking to this building to turn this into a homeless shelter. And right, wrong, or indifferent, it's okay to help this population. It's important to do so. We've done a good job. But we didn't keep our end of the deal to the people of Miami-Dade County. Is that right? Is it wrong? Depends on who you ask. But now when we look at Miami Beach and what's happening in Miami Beach, we talk about leverage points and how we need to keep our leverage over the city of Miami Beach. We do that in business a lot. But this is the public sector. I think based on the conversation that we're having here right now, you have to understand that the county is looking to you and this county commission to come up with some solutions and to help with a contribution to help in the homeless situation that we have on the beach as well. So, Mr. Manager, I think you may have stated this. Are you open to have these conversations coming together? What are the preliminary thoughts that you may have right now? Where can we get the money? Where can the city of Miami Beach get the money from? What can you guys do to make sure that you do contribute to this issue that we have before us? Mr. Chairman.
Commissioner, the answer to your initial question is, are we willing? Absolutely. We're willing to sit down and figure out where it can come from. With all due respect, we've been throwing out a lot of different numbers today, and I'm not quite sure where that number is going to land, and that's ultimately going to dictate what I can and can't do as far as potential pots of money that we would have to tap into. It might have to be a combination of everything, but ultimately, the more precise we can be with a number, the more precise we can be with how the city is going to contribute to, in addition to what we're already contributing to the overall well-being of this community, we could absolutely give you scenarios. I just don't have a number today that I can say definitively I can fund it out of this pot of money. The concern that I had, and the reason that we're, obviously all here today, is talking about the convention center hotel. The $15 million ask that was originally put on the agenda as the resolution would basically remove the funding from the RDA that would be available to allow the convention center hotel to move forward. So if you're telling me that the number is $15 million, I can tell you that I have a decision that I either have to build a hotel or I have to fund it from the RDA, but I can't do both. If we're talking about a number that seems more reasonable from where I'm sitting, obviously I'm not in your seat, I'm in a very different one. The number that seems more reasonable from where I'm sitting, which is there was approximately $10 million that would have been generated by the referendum had it passed, and the city is contributing $5.2 million. So if we're talking about the difference between those two numbers, as was the prior agreement with Mr. Book, that $4.8 million is something that we might have alternatives with the RDA. We might have alternatives elsewhere in the city's budget, but obviously it's fact specific, sir.
Yeah, and look, and this is, Commissioner Steinberg, I hate that we're getting between two commissioners here. But you both represent the beach and have a different perspective right now, the north or the south, but I just don't think that we rescind the RDA, the agreement. I think we've worked very hard and long to make sure that we have this hotel convention center on the beach, and to go back on that, to me, is just a tough pill to swallow. What are we telling the taxpayers of this community of Miami-Dade County? What's the message that we're sending? That municipalities cannot work together? Dade County cannot work with Miami Beach? There is a landing strip, guess here, landing place where we can all come together and land. And I think, Mr. Chairman, the conversation needs to be had, I think, in more in depth, and the city of Miami Beach has to come up with some solutions to the funding situation. And we, with this new commission and new city manager, need to come up with some concrete numbers as to what we can contribute, what you can contribute, so we can try to help the homelessness situation that we have in this community. So, but for now, Mr. Chairman, I cannot support any going back on the RDA.
Thank you, Senator. Senator, just a point of correction, because I understand, and Commissioner Hardiman said something. He said that they were master messengers, messaging, and I think they are. This is absolutely not retaliatory. This is absolutely not retaliatory. I don't.
All right, Mr. Chairman, I'll take that.
Yeah, it wasn't. This isn't retaliatory.
I apologize for that. I got you.
So, Mr. Manager, so what you're saying is you all contribute. You're doing $5 million. You think that you could find an additional $4 million in the RDA to make it $9 million? Or what are you exactly saying? So you're talking about the delta between the 10 and the 5 you're already doing.
Assuming that the number 10 is accurate, which I believe, Mr. Book, that it's probably accurate. I'm sure he's run the numbers. I believe that we could probably find that number to make the county whole. I just don't know exactly, as we stand here today, where that pot of money would come from.
Okay, so that's a start. And the reason why I say this, and Senator, I appreciate what you're saying, but the reason why we find ourselves in the position to have to do business with them this way is because we find that if we don't lock it in and it's reversible, they could just change their mind. And so if they change our mind, and to everyone who doesn't want to reopen the RDA, that's fine. Don't reopen the RDA, as long as you assume the risk of losing that leverage point. As long as you assume the risk. Because the assumption of risk is squarely on the county here. Gonzalez, you recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I think you're making a tremendous point. And I think that, but I also, I mean, I'm listening to my colleague, Commissioner Bermudez, and he made a tremendous point as well. I don't want to kill this hotel deal. I really don't. I don't think two wrongs make a right. I don't want to kill this convention center deal. I really, really, really don't. I think it means, number one, it means great things for the residents of Miami-Dade County as far as taxes are concerned. And number two, I saw how hard Commissioner Eileen Higgins worked in order to make that deal function. I'm just going to pose this question, specifically to Commissioner Higgins and the rest of my colleagues. Would there be a willingness to entertain amending 11A19, and in amending 11A19, buying us time, because I don't want to reconsider the deal and then we kill the financing on this, and then we don't get a convention center. I'm just posing this as a question. I don't know what the willingness is or the temperament on the board is.
Yeah, obviously you see me scurrying around with David and George. As we look at the Miami Beach RDA, I think on 11A19, I don't want to say we could, scrap that, but we could move on from that, defer that to no date certain. There are ways we need to reconsider what we voted on last time. There are funds in the RDA that would not, let me repeat, would not put the convention center hotel financing at risk. First of all, there's an approximately $10 million surplus. Don't quote me exactly on the number, that could immediately be written, paid to the county to fund homeless services, at least for this current year, since we will not be getting the incremental $10 million. There also, as you know, when the convention center is built, there's a $500 million payment that was going to be split between the county and the city. We could require that the city's portion be used for homeless services when that happens. That's no impact on the city's budget now, because that doesn't happen until the hotel opens, so we're not impacting their budget, but that gives us a long-term renewable amount of money, not a ton, but a little bit. There's also a transfer fee should the hotel be transferred to someone else that is now split between the county and city. We don't know that hotel is ever going to be sold, probably won't be, but we could take the city's portion of that transfer fee, should that ever happen, and dedicate that to homeless services. So none of that adversely affects the city of Miami Beach's budget today. It gives us a fix for 1 year. They can then go back to City Hall and come up with the $10 million that we are now going to be missing every year into the future, and come up with various long-term solutions. What we do know, because it was put in writing, was we know their city attorney has told us, even if this goes to the ballot in 2026 and the residents vote yes, the city commission has the power to annul it. And they have, and Commissioner Steinberg was instrumental when she was on that commission of putting an incremental $1 million in for domestic violence. A lot of that has since been gone away. So this commission is sort of nicked away at trying to provide fundings for this. And I also want this $4 million that the city of Miami puts in, right? The tax was going to generate $10 million. Notice how the city is now saying there's only $5 million. It means that if this passes the $10 million, they were planning on taking away the $4 million they already spend, right? So, again, it's a little showmanship. And I realize, Mr. Carpenter, you and I are friends, that you have to represent your city well, and you do a wonderful job. So I would propose and would make a motion that we reopen the RDA. We only have the opportunity to do this. I would then propose those modifications to the interlocal, none of which adversely affect this coming year's budget in the city of Miami Beach. We could modify that. The City of Miami Beach Commission would have to ratify that, but they would continue to get the $75 million for the hotel, and they would have no hit on their current budget to help us at least with this 1 year gap. So I would make that motion. Mr. Chair, I don't know, do I have to make the motion to reconsider all by itself?
Make the motion to reconsider first.
Mr. Chair?
Okay, I make the motion to reconsider.
It's been moved and seconded. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? No. All right, the ayes have it.
Okay, so these are my, I think, modifications, and I probably would need some help from the attorneys, please. There is a surplus balance in the Miami Beach RDA, so we would modify the interlocal. Am I waiting? Terrence, are you the person that's helping, or am I waiting for David?
David's working on
Okay.
a motion for you.
Yeah, I was no.
As we move forward, can we ask what implications this will have, whatever we're offering up as an amendment, what that will do to the existing deal?
Nothing. I have already done that investigation myself. This has no implications on the financial viability of the Miami Beach RDA. Now, does that mean that we're not going to have frantic phone calls? Yeah, they really liked the way it was passed last time, and I really liked the way it was passed last time. I went out on a limb, as Commissioner Gonzalez went on and on. I had to beg some of you to support this $75 million gift to the city of Miami Beach, and you all supported me, and you were kind. And the same day they took that money, they did this. They took away $10 million from us. So explícame that. It's not nice. I went out on a limb for them once. These amendments I'm making now do not impact the city of Miami Beach's budget in the coming fiscal year. It gives them an entire year to figure it out. Whether that's a ballot initiative in 2026, some cash they're going to have to come up with, whatever it is, that's on them. So, all right, David, are you ready? The surplus. I would like the interlocal to be modified that the surplus would be as immediately as practically possible paid for the county, and the county would only use that for services for people experiencing homelessness and victims of domestic violence. We haven't talked about domestic violence. This funding that they canceled also was for victims of domestic violence. The Convention Center Hotel annual payment, the city's portion would be collected by the county, but the county would only use that to provide services to homeless individuals and victims of domestic violence. If there is a transfer fee, should the Convention Center Hotel be sold, which is pretty unlikely, but you know we have it in the contract just in case, the city's portion of that transfer fee would be paid to the county, and the county could only use the portion of that transfer fee to provide services for people experiencing homelessness or victims of domestic violence. So, colleagues, that would be my amendment to the interlocal. It does not affect the Convention Center Hotel in any way, and at least it helps the city of Miami Beach for the coming year with no adverse impact on their budget, gives them time to come up with a long-term solution. That would be my motion. Thank you.
Second.
Mr. Chair.
I got a question.
Okay. The vice chair has a question.
I'm still waiting for the last round.
Well, you are waiting for the last round. Regalado. You're rest. You're ready. I'm sorry. Okay.
It's okay. I mean, I'm really trying to be patient. And Commissioner Higgins, I understand your frustration, and I appreciate the amendments. The only thing that I would say to the board is this: I don't want to enter into some bizarre standoff, with Miami Beach. So I just want us to be clear on the record that this is what we are proposing. If we do not get what we want this way, we have the CRA. And that's why we're deferring the CRA, the North Beach CRA, just so we're clear, because this is going to go back to Miami Beach, and I don't want this to turn into some sort of grenade where they then use this opportunity to blow up the hotel, and then it comes back to us, and then we go back, and then we go forth. We have been forced to play hardball We did not want to do this. And I think that there is clarity, on this point. I just want to put on the record, I think that we need the hotel. I think it was a difficult vote for us, to come to that agreement. I want the hotel to move forward. I don't want us to blow it up, and I don't want them to blow it up. But if that occurs when they reconvene, then we bring back the CRA, and we'll take what we need to take. So I just want to be clear on the record on that, because I think that there is an opportunity to solve this problem. And like I said earlier, if Miami Beach has an alternative funding source to what we are proposing, my question to you, Commissioner Higgins, is would you undo this if they propose a funding source that made sense?
No. I can tell you, you are not on all their emails. Get on their email list should you want to. And you will be very enlightened about their opinions of homelessness, homeless individuals, how to bus people and get people out of Miami Beach. This is a one-year stopgap. We have a long-term problem. We've got to figure out what we're going to do. We still have the issue of funding of our jails. We still have the issue of permanent supportive housing that has been funded. So for this gives them a year. It's going to take them a year to figure out what the other solution is. And they're forbidden by state law to put the ballot initiative until 2026. So they can't even fix that next year.
Right, but my question is, I agree with you on the stopgap.
All right, here's what I'll tell you. If they come up with a $10 million check, which is basically what we're missing for the next fiscal year, I'm happy to kind of fuss around with this. But,
okay, that's just
but
what
until
I
that, this is my $10 million check. Thank you.
Okay, just so that we're clear, I just want clarity, right? Because this is like this ping pongs back and forth, so that just so that we're all clear in that there is a majority of this board that believes that Miami Beach must fund the homeless. And this is what we're doing now because we've been given no other option, right? I mean, we went through all these traps. We're running out of time. We have a financial obligation that we do not want to place on the other residents of Miami-Dade County. We've been very clear about where the burden lies. And we're going to keep on the agenda the CRA for the next meeting. So you have until November 20th to come up with something. If this doesn't work, we can then fix it then, because we are allowed to reconsider it one more time. I guess that's my question to the attorneys. We're amending this item now, so that allows us, if they come up with something better, to open it up again on the 20th. Yes, Mr. Attorney?
That's correct, Commissioner.
Thank you. So that there's clarity, right? There's clarity. We do not want to blow up the hotel. Don't make us do this thing, right? So just so that we're clear. Thank you, Commissioner Higgins, for your patience.
Point of order, Mr. Chair. I don't believe that the motion for reconsideration is properly before the board. I'd like to recognize the clerk to actually roll call the vote count on the motion for reconsideration if that's procedurally proper. I don't think the motion for reconsideration is properly and procedurally before the board.
It's not proper for you to recognize the clerk to do it, no, because I'm chairing the meeting. So no. It was disposed of, and we moved on. Thank you.
But,
You're recognized.
no, I just want clarification. Is it in front of us?
Yeah.
Yes.
No, not the reconsideration. That's already.
Oh no, we've already reconsidered the items before us now. Yes. Go on the mic, Nikki.
What was the vote?
It's a voice vote. Yes.
The clerk walked around and said that the vote failed on the motion for reconsideration. I'm not making this up. It's why I asked for a point of order, because if the vote did not pass on the motion for reconsideration, it was not properly before the board.
You probably need to, yes. It was announced as passed. It was a voice vote. It's fine. It's before us.
What's before us? You recognize me?
Yeah. You're recognized.
But listen,
Senator, let me just recognize him first. If you want to yield to the senator real quick.
I will yield.
Yield.
Mr. Chairman, and I understand the powers of the chair. Trust me, I do. But I don't know if this is properly before us now. Yes, it was a voice vote, but I'm hearing now, if we're just going to continue to do things because we're just going to go ahead and do them, I think there's a reason why we have rules and procedures. And I'm not quite understanding, I'm not quite sure if this is properly before us. There was a voice vote, yes, no, and we moved on. I would ask Mr. Chairman if the clerk could give some explanation as to where we are in this process.
Senator, the clerk doesn't actually determine where we're in the process. The chair does. The item did pass. If it's will of this body, if it's will of the body, I mean, if you need me to. If it's will of this body, we can have further discussion. But there are 7 votes to reconsider.
I'm not sure if there is. Can we do a hand vote? Can we do it to be clear?
Absolutely. You do realize that we're on the actual item now, and the motion is on the floor.
I think to eliminate any doubt.
I agree. To eliminate any doubt. Absolutely. All those in favor of reconsidering, who voted in favor of reconsidering, raise your hand. In favor of reconsidering, yes.
In favor of reconsidering.
Yeah. 7.
I'm assuming you're just trying to get a recalculation.
It's calibration.
But the thing about it is this, and I appreciate you for recognizing me. When someone calls a question, if there's an affirmative, if you make noise, aye, hey, nay, you have to make noise. I call for all those in favor. If you're absolutely quiet, the motion will carry. The motion passes. When he asks for the votes in the negative, those who say nay, they're counted against it. So, he did both. He asked for the votes in favor, by voice vote, all who for say yay. There was noise. If you didn't make a noise, you're counted in favor. And then all those against, there was a noise. And then he calculates the noise with those who were quiet and those who were vocal on the against, and whoever has the most votes wins. That's what happened.
Yeah, and listen, we've done 7, but just so we're clear, Commissioner Cohen-Higgins, I appreciate it. I heard the clerk come around also. When clerk came to me, I said, it passed. It is completely inappropriate for the clerk to walk around and survey us once the chair has ruled that something is passed. It is completely inappropriate. But we've done it now. 7 people raised their hands, so it's in front of us now. So can we get back to, because this is shaping up to be longer than our budget meeting at this point. Like, we're shaping up to be longer than our budget meeting. Yeah, let's back on the item now.
Back on the motion. All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Now that we've established that we've got the 7 votes on the reconsideration, I also did hear the clerk too, though. So
yeah,
so it's. Listen, I understand this to be I understand that I know the answer to this, but I want to get on the record, and I don't know if this is for Commissioner Higgins or the attorneys, but this will not extend the RDA, right? What we're doing. Mr. Attorney?
That's correct.
Okay. And I don't know if we ask the developer, which I see sweating in the back of the hotel, and I could like physically see the sweat dripping from here, but I want to make sure this does not also does not affect the hotel financing of the deal and for this deal to move forward. Can I call up the developer? I don't think that a month, if they're going to come back in a month, I don't think this will, but Mr. Martin, maybe it's in 2 weeks, actually. It's less. Like, I don't know that 2 weeks really kills the financing or anything, but I see you sweating in the back. We had a conversation. I want to make sure that this body took a vote just a couple weeks ago based on what the voters of Miami Beach wanted with this hotel, and I want to make sure that this does not kill the deal.
Commissioner and Vice Chair and everyone, I'm honored to be here. Thank you for your time. David Martin, 3310 Mary Street, the hotel developer for the Convention Center Hotel. I don't know is the answer. I don't know. The deal is somewhat, obviously delayed, and there's certain requirements we have to meet certain timelines and dates. We have a start date organized for February of next year. We have subcontracts and subcontractors that are guaranteeing pricing for that with that start date. Obviously, moving that start date is going to impact the financing. We have the financial markets, bond markets and financial markets that are all staring at us, hopefully trying to move this forward. So I want to be honest, I don't know, but I will say that the deal was fragile, and that's why we came here, and I appreciate all the work and support that Commissioner Higgins and everyone has done. But honestly, Commissioner, I don't know.
All right, thank you, Mr. Martin. And that's I wanted a more assertive answer, but thank you for your honesty. I appreciate that. The other thing, and this is very non-traditional, and I'm happy to scale this back if it's inappropriate, but while there is no official meeting of Miami Beach happening, we have 4 of the commissioners here present today. At a minimum, if not hearing from all 4, can we have the sponsoring commissioner of the one that took out, and the vice mayor is here as well? Okay, where is the vice mayor? I know Alex, I haven't seen him.
Vice Mayor, are you here? Stand up. Oh, there he is. Okay, come over here.
Yeah, come up, please, Vice Mayor. Commissioner, and while the Vice Mayor comes up, is this because? And again, and the reason I'm calling them too is what you're proposing today, Commissioner Higgins, does it still have to go back? It still has to go back to them to accept, right? And it's for 1 year. It's just for 1 year until we figure this out.
Yes.
Is that right? So it's something reasonable, I think, in my opinion, right? It's a happy middle ground. But for the developer to move forward, he needs an agreement on the Miami Beach side, right? Is this feasible? And I know that you're being put on the spot, and this is not traditional, and this is not what I would like done to me, but we're in a very, last minute moment here, and this is the way things happen. Is this something that you believe, at least yourself, you can only speak for yourself, could consider for 1 year until we find a long-term solution, but so that the development moves forward, so the homelessness gets funded? Can you just speak to this a little bit and give us your thoughts?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Vice Chair. And thank you again for allowing me to speak one more time. And just for clarity, Commissioner Higgins, do you mind reiterating exactly what the deal is that you were proposing?
Okay.
You can
Do you mind?
Go ahead.
Okay. In the Convention Center Hotel, take this out of it because Mr. Martin is paranoid, as all developers are, but this going back, by the way, November 20th, I believe, right, Mr. Vice Mayor, that's your next commission meeting? I think that's your next commission meeting, yeah. So it's coming up very quickly, just as ours is. So first of all, in the Miami Beach RDA, there is a surplus. It's just cash sitting in the bank. Does that make sense? So it's not going back to your general fund. It's just sitting there. And I know that your city manager has talked about that as a possible source of funds. So the idea would be that we would use that surplus to supplement what would have been the $10 million to come. And that would come to the county and we would use it for homeless and domestic violence piece. So that doesn't affect your general fund, your annual budget, right? Because what I don't want to do is affect immediately the annual budget of your city, right? You need to figure out a long-term solution. I don't want to take cash out of the budget now, right? Because the tax was not going to affect your operating budget, your ability to, have police service and keep your parks nice and clean and, all the stuff that cities need to do. So that's the only immediate thing. There's 2 things in the Convention Center Hotel. None of these things, so the annual payment for the Convention Center Hotel doesn't happen until 5 years after the convention center gets its certificate of occupancy. So we're talking about that money you're not going to see for 10 more years, 8 more years. And so the city's half of that would be, the county would collect it, and we would spend it only on domestic violence and homelessness services. So that's money that's a decade away from seeing again, does not affect your budget this year, next year, the year after that, the year after that, the year after that. There was also in the contract for the Convention Center Hotel a contingency of a transfer fee. Again, that depends on if the hotel is sold. We don't really think it's going to be. We think the Hyatt's going to run it, blah, blah, blah. But should it be, the city's share of that hypothetical transfer fee at whatever years in the future would be collected by the county, and again, the county would only be able to spend that on homeless services and domestic violence. So we had...
For 1 year.
And, well, that's all in the future. That's all future money. So that's forever money. That creates a recurring revenue source. By the way, it helps the city of Miami Beach when it comes up with its plan, right? Because it is going to have to come back with us for a long-term funding plan. But none of that is money they're getting for the next 7-8 years. So it's not even, I don't want to say it's not real money. Eventually it's going to be real money, but it's not real money today. The only real money today is the surplus. And this does help us because we are in this position where state law has changed. The city of Miami Beach is arresting people. We have to be able to, one, pay for those nights in jail for those people, sadly and unfortunately. Two, God, hopefully get them out of jail and into services. And that is what the food and beverage tax was supposed to help us fund. And the commission, or the majority of the commissioners, I don't want to lump you in there, Mr. Fernandez and Ms. Dominguez, I see her there as well. But the majority of the city of Miami Beach commissioners decided to take that away from our plan. So this makes the county whole for 1 year and does not affect the Convention Center Hotel. Let me tell you what could affect the Convention Center Hotel. One of the partners has still not signed the easement for the bridge we have already fabricated. And we all voted unanimously that we will not be going to financial close on that $75 million until that easement for our Tri-Rail and Brightline stations are granted. So this is not going to slow this down. The City of Miami Beach Commission can just ratify this interlocal at its next meeting. There's no short-term impact on its budget, and it gives them a year to work out a long-term solution.
Through the vice chair.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I was the sponsor of the repeal of the rescission of the tax measure, and I can tell you now that I am more than willing to come to an agreement to put it back on the 2026 ballot. Okay, I think it's important to realize that when we passed our item, there was 2 items. There was a resolution and an ordinance. The ordinance takes 2 readings. I am the sponsor of that ordinance. I am telling you all here today, I'm giving you my word that I will repeal that ordinance, let it stand, and come back to you and to my city and propose something that is fair, reasonable, and more importantly, documented. I think it's very important to realize that there was a handshake agreement. I was not privy to this handshake agreement. I want to make sure that when we move forward, there is clarity and something that we can rely on. Mr. Book is here. He's not the youngest guy. Okay. What happens if he passes away tomorrow? How do we know how do we know that the agreement's going to be held? So
guys, order in the chamber. Order in the chamber. Keep your feelings to yourself. Shake your hands, as the chair often says. Do the thing with the hands.
So
no fingers.
I just want to make sure that whatever deal we have is concrete. And it's written. So what we were proposing, I think through some back channels, is we were more than willing to pay the $10 million.
Hey, hold on, okay, everybody, hold on, Commissioner, hold on. So the vice chair is so much nicer than I am. Y'all gonna be quiet while the commissioner's speaking.
Another commissioner, yeah.
Yeah, he's speaking, and you all talking like you're outside somewhere. He's speaking, we're listening, and you all are listening also. Commissioner, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So along the lines of what your colleague is suggesting, I'm willing to rescind my ordinance, the second reading, so that we have a new ballot on the November 2026 election. And until that time, since this would have been $10 million to the county, we are willing to pay, I believe it would be $4.8 million per year until 26. And the reason why it's 4.8 is because the Homeless Trust chair told us that he would make us whole. So we already spend $5.2 million in homelessness services every year. So we've already budgeted that for 2025. So we're not going to come back to you and say, now it's $7 million. This is already on the books. So I think the best to meet everyone halfway would to say we're going to fund homeless services for the next 2 years, and on November 2026, it'll be back on the ballot, and win, lose, or draw, that payments will stop, and then we'll have finally a decision and let the voters decide. If the voters of Miami Beach decide if we want to tax our local small businesses.
Commissioner. Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off abruptly, but so you've answered part of my question, but that's good. That's good. You're showing good faith as a sponsoring commissioner for all that. Now, I'm not sure that answers my question, though. Is this amendment to the RDA interlocal agreement, right? That accurate to say it that way? Is essentially for 1 year. The money, the $10 million is for the first year. It's what we're about to vote on, and I'm pretty good at counting votes from up here. My question is, and I'm asking these questions because the answer I'm looking for is for this deal not to die, right? The hotel financing deal, et cetera, which I don't think Miami Beach wants it to die either. Because it's only for 1 year, and maybe you want to yield at some point to the vice mayor and give him the courtesy so he can give some remarks as well, since he's standing up here patiently waiting. Thank you, Vice Mayor. Can you all live with this for a year until we find a long-term solution? Maybe it's what you're proposing up at the podium. Maybe it's that you bring it back in 2026. Whatever that solution is, we have now, not a year because we want to do it before the year, but we have 6 months to work on. Can you all, and you all I know is very vague, but can you as individual commissioners get behind so that this convention center and hotel project that the voters of Miami Beach voted on moves forward and does not get held up?
Okay, just to unpack a few things, when we say $10 million, I just want to be clear that there's already been on the record that of that 10 million, 5 million would come back, technically 5.2 million would come back to the city from the Homeless Trust. Mr. Book is more than happy to come up here and tell you that. That being said, me personally, I am more than happy to agree to that. I cannot speak for my commission or my colleagues. I certainly don't want to violate any sunshine laws between my commissioner, Vice Mayor Fernandez here, but as the item sponsor, and remember the vote went down 4-3, there's certainly a willingness from me to come to the negotiating table. And I'm saying not even for 1 year, I'm saying for 2 years. Until the 26th ballot, because if everyone, just in case everyone knows, if we were to put it back on the ballot, it has to be in a general election, so an even year. It cannot be a referendum for question.
Thank you, Commissioner. Vice Mayor, do you want to opine on the discussion and my question?
Sure, and thank you, Mr. Vice Chairman. Alex Fernandez, Vice Mayor of the City of Miami Beach, and I'm here speaking only on my own capacity. I was not aware of any back channel communications going on behalf of our city negotiating anything. As far as I'm aware of, no one has been appointed by our City Commission to be engaging in any negotiations with the county, so I'm learning a lot of things right now for the very first time. So there's a lot of regrouping that needs to take place. So here's my concern. My concern is, whenever we come back, it seems like the interlocal agreement, more gets taken away, more gets taken away. I'm all for the idea that the participation fee that is now $500,000, if the participation fee, the annual participation fee, the city's portion is going towards homelessness, so should the county's portion go into homelessness, because it's always been a history of parity. If the transfer fee, if the 2% transfer fee dictated as part of the grant agreement, the city's portion of it is forfeited so that it would go to homeless services, so should the counties as well, because that's always been the kind of like what the agreement has been like. It's been one of parity. I don't like negotiating on the fly from the dais. But I do think there is room for a discussion to take place. I'm happy for there to be such a discussion at the November 20th City Commission meeting. And I'm just going to place it for the record. I think I've probably communicated with most of you. Addressing homelessness is something that is important to me. I was a supporter of the 1% tax when it was first placed on the ballot. I voted against the repeal of the 1% tax. I, like many Miami Beach residents, paid the 1% homeless tax whenever we leave Miami Beach. So to say that Miami Beach residents don't pay the tax, we do pay the tax when we leave the beach. The question is, do we want to impose it on our small businesses that many of you patronize as well when you visit our city and eat in our restaurants? And I think that that's a decision for the voters. And the voters, it seems like they were saying by 52% that they were in favor of that. And I believe in respecting the will of the electorate. So I want to make sure that it's very clear. This is something that still needs to be, discussed at our dais. I don't like to negotiate from up here because there are nuances and a lot of nuances. And I always get concerned that whenever we come back, just more gets taken away from us. And that's something that is very concerning too.
Of course. Thank you, Vice Mayor. Appreciate it. And thank you, Commissioner. Thank you. I personally, unless, I'm going to hear from my colleagues in a second, but I'm ready to make a decision on my end. Commissioner.
It's Bermudez for a question and then Regalado.
Yeah, mine is a comment and a question. First of all, I am not the city attorney nor any of us from Miami Beach because there's no mariachi bands here. But no, I'm just saying, I would tell you this, to ask these individuals who are elected officials, that could be a violation of the Sunshine Law. So don't do it. Anyways, my question is this: how long, and this might be of any one of you in the city of Miami Beach, maybe Mr. Carpenter, maybe Mr. Suarez, how long was the city of Miami Beach aware that this was going to be on the ballot? And if so, what happened that this came in at the last moment?
Through the chair.
Yes.
Thank you.
Commissioner, recognized.
I give you my word. The only time I found out about this ballot was September 18th or 19th when my sample ballot came in. Not a single ward from the Homeless Trust gave me a call. I find it strange that someone who has the ability to raise $500,000 in PAC money to advocate for this ballot measure to tax our residents didn't have the wherewithal to give the sponsor, me, a call. This has been a public agenda item for a week before the vote. I did not get a call from anyone with this matter. I didn't get a call from Dan Gelber. I didn't get a call from Ron Book. I didn't get a call from anyone from the county. This has been on, this was made public. Everyone knew about it. I heard everyone knew about it. And no one gave me a call to tell me that there was a handshake deal about the North Beach CRA, because if there was a deal and someone would have told me that, I would have repealed my item, because I believe in holding up to a deal. You can ask any of my colleagues. When I give my word, it's all I got. And I'm telling you, all of you today, I'm giving you my word that we want to come. I'm going to put this back on the November 2026 ballot. I'm going to make sure that the language is clear, transparent, and that the voters have an opportunity to digest information that's accurate. And perhaps between now and November 2026, the Homeless Trust and I can negotiate a better deal where our most struggling businesses aren't going to be taxed. Because if you've been to Lincoln Road lately, if you've been to Washington Avenue, all of our small businesses are closing up shop. And I think it was unfair to put the burden on them while excluding hotels where all the tourists stay. All the tourists stay in hotels. Let's get that straight. And they were excluded from this. I find that highly disingenuous. I cannot go back to my city and put the burden on our most small mom and pop shops. Okay? So I just want to make clear that no one came to me. I was the item sponsor. No one told me that there was deals made. Okay? No one told me that, hey, how about we come up with a written contract that we're going to make whole with the city of Miami Beach instead of just a word of mouth agreement that was made years ago.
Mr. Suarez, just one quick question, and I appreciate your zealousness in representing your constituents. My question really goes to the point is, having been an elected official, and I don't know how long you've been elected. I'm assuming you were elected last year or this year?
12 months.
12 months, okay. I would suppose that whatever was going on the ballot had to be approved at some point with either you or some of your colleagues or some of the prior individuals being on that dais.
Previous commission.
Previous commission. But I would suppose that you were aware of it, correct? You weren't aware of the side deal, but you were aware of the ballot question.
Truth be told, I was not aware of this. We had a committee of a whole months, maybe I think in July, if I'm not mistaken. It was never brought up to us. There's meeting minutes to verify that. There were letters to commission, I think, leading up to the September meeting, and as a footnote. Okay. Remember, as you all are aware, this is a part-time opportunity. I am not.
Commissioner, hold on for a second. Commissioner, yield for a second. Where's Albert at? The sergeant, as you see people talking in the audience, tap them on the shoulder and walk them out. That includes Lourdes, who's standing up at the back rail talking right now. It is 12:52. It's 1 o'clock. We're going to land this plane. You're going to stop talking in this meeting. Commissioner, you're recognized.
Yeah, no, thank you, Mr. Suarez, and I appreciate your frankness. I mean, I asked you the question because I just think that, and this, I guess, is a question that Commissioner Higgins may have answered already, but that's our attorneys. Obviously, bringing back this issue and amending it, but in other words, we'd have to do it today. We don't have another opportunity to do it. Is that correct? Correct. Okay. So that's for. Okay. My concern continues to be if we walk away today. And by the way, this is no inference on you, Mr. Suarez, or the other elected. I think 3 others, right, that are here today, or even you, Mr. Carpenter, obviously, but obviously on the elected officials, they're going to have to go back and make a decision in a duly noticed meeting. They can't really discuss this issue in front of us. So if anything comes out of this conversation today, it's still not going to be necessarily ratified until it's approved by the board of Miami Beach. As far as and I know Mr. Martin, I guess going back, would the city of Miami Beach be able to either with your regular meetings or in an emergency meeting, or a regular meeting followed with an emergency meeting, or vice versa, would the city of Miami Beach be able to meet the requirements of having an answer back in front of us by our next meeting, which would be November 20th?
I believe we could.
Because if that's the case, by the way, it wouldn't change my opinion in sending it back to you so you could at least discuss it, but it would give you all the opportunity, and also you, Mr. Suarez, to come back and say, this is my idea, this is what I believe we can do. I think it's almost impossible for anybody to do it. Unfortunately, with the four of you here and the rest of us from this dais, I think it's unfair to you, and I think it's unfair to us, to be honest with you. But if something is proffered, it's still not going to be effective until you accept it. And if you come back and say you don't, then we understand where we're at, and we'll have to make a decision, right? Simple as that. But at least we have clarity. And I appreciate the fact, Commissioner Suarez, that you've gone on the record and given your word, and I appreciate that, because at least you said it publicly. But I think you and your colleagues, the proper thing would be to go back and have a discussion on whatever comes out of here today. And by November 20th, which is our next meeting, which I think is doable, right? We have an answer. Or am I missing something here?
Okay. Commissioner, I too take you at your word that you didn't know. But if I remember the legislative history, it's properly before me in my mind, we actually had to, the Miami Beach had to go to Tallahassee and lobby the legislature to allow them to do this. Is that correct? Is Jess here? Or Ron, can you get up? This wasn't easy to get to this point for us. Could you walk us through the history? And Mr. Brooke, I've seen you in the front row, and I saw your face turning red. So whatever you're about to do, de-escalate it.
I breathe, Mr. Chair. That's why I sat down, thanks to Commissioner Higgins. I think the question was, how did we get to the ballot measure, and how did it get to where we are? The city of Miami Beach, after a straw ballot, non-binding, in 2021, by an over 53.5% vote margin, was an urging to the commission to pass a resolution urging the legislature to remove the exemption. The only reason this measure went on a ballot was a senator from outside of the area preferred for it to be voted on before. I will reiterate one point I've made to several people who have asked. The only tax measures that the governor of the state of Florida has approved was this measure to go on the ballot. It wasn't once, but it was in the tax package 2 consecutive years. And the reason it had to go back to the legislature last year to clarify for everybody, because this question has been asked and the answer has been wrong, was that the city attorney took the position that when the language which was drafted by Senate staff would have required 50% of all registered voters on the beach to vote, and the county attorney took the position that that was not the correct interpretation. So we went back at the urging of this commission to have that issue, it was in the package last year, to have that issue clarified that it was a majority of those voting in a regular general election ballot. And that is how we got to where we were with the ballot. I remind you that 32 municipalities in this county, including UPSA, never voted on it because the legislature never required it. And I would add one other point, Mr. Chair, to answer a question that was asked about the hotels. The hotels, at the urging 34 years ago of the city of Miami Beach, Bal Harbour, and Surfside, let the hotels out at their request to avoid further, if you will, impacts to the tourism population. Mom and pops aren't paying this because they don't have liquor licenses. It does not apply to establishments with wine and beer. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. My concern right now is that we clearly have a disconnect. There's a disconnect between the 4 and the 10, and there's a disconnect between the different vehicles. So, Commissioner Higgins, I would ask you to consider the following. Instead of the more complex amendment that you made, I think what we should consider is an amendment where you take the 4, the first and the second year, and then of the surplus, we take it of the surplus, or or we take it from the CRA or whatever other funding. This is not the only funding source that flows through us through to Miami Beach. So instead of reopening the entire thing, because I feel like this is going to go back to the beach and it's going to be totally reopened and relitigated, and there's clearly a lot of issues that they need to resolve internally on this. And listen, I understand that you spend money on homelessness, but we don't necessarily agree with how you spend your money on homelessness, right? And for those of us who represent the city of Miami, we feel that we carry the burden of that and that you don't understand it. And I understand, and again, we're happy to sit with you individually and tell you like what our issues are. You inherited something. We inherited things too. You know, when you get elected, you inherit what the boards before you decided, but that doesn't mean you hit the reset button, you know, and put your partners in a difficult spot. We're in a difficult spot of approving a hotel that's going to cost us a lot more, but we understand that it is an investment that we want to make in Miami Beach, right? And the horse trading with this is painful for us because we're being forced to make difficult decisions. We're not asking you to house them. We're housing them. You know, Bastien is housing them. Hardiman is housing them. Higgins is housing them. You know, Keone McGee is housing them. Commissioner Cohen-Higgins is housing them. She's gonna own it now. She's housing them. We're proud of you. We're proud of you. But I think it's important. You know, yeah. So I think it's important for you to understand our position. So I think we can take it from the CRA. I think we can take it from other funds. I don't necessarily want to blow this particular thing up. So what I would ask you to consider is, you know, that the amendment be we're going to take it from the surplus without getting into like what happens if you sell or what happens if you this or what happens if you that. Just like we're going to take it for the surplus the first year or the second year. We believe that we are due an amount. If we don't take it from there, we'll take it from something else. And that way they understand that we have to resolve this issue. This issue has to be resolved. We can no longer kick this can. And I get it. You're going to put it on the ballot in 26, but then we have to get it to the voters. And by the way, you could not be there. Maybe you are, maybe you're not. And maybe someone else is there, or maybe someone else hits the reset button. That this is the world that we live in, right? You know, as elected officials with term limits that can be recalled, right? This is just a different world. So I just want you all to understand that a resolution will come from something. And what we don't want to do is every item that comes to us is going to be hijacked for failure to come to some sort of agreement. Okay, so Commissioner Higgins, that's just my question to you.
Let me just correct. There is no annual surplus year after year after year. There is a little surplus this year that is unallocated. We would only use that surplus from this year, because by next year we will have been financing the convention center hotel, and so we need to be using whatever funds are in the RDA to make sure that that happens. But right now there's a little bucket of funds that we could immediately deploy to help with the homeless situation. So it's only a one-year thing, right?
Right, but your amendment had a series of other things.
Yes, I do think, as I said to you before, neither of these things happen until after the convention center is built, which at the rate this is going on, none of us may be alive, right? So none of those things happen until the convention center is built. And I promised you, just in the last conversation we had, that should the city of Miami Beach come up with a long-term funding plan that is not contingent on the ballot initiative, right? They have to come up with a long-term funding plan equal to that ballot initiative, because I received this week an email from a commissioner that said they have already been advised by the city attorney that it doesn't matter if it's on the ballot, the commission can annul it, right, indicating this commissioner's intention to annul it. Not you, Mr. Suarez. Also, in these emails, just because they put it on the ballot, they used their own email list to advocate against it vociferously. So that being on the ballot does not indicate that they're going to get it helped across the finish line and saying, yo, I think this is a good idea. Yo, we're going to help human beings. And isn't that a nice, lovely thing? they're here today because they're afraid we're going to take away our $181 million investment in the North Beach CRA. They're not here today because they care. So I am very comfortable with my amendment. I think it's fair. I think it covers our hole that we were expecting from this tax to have passed. And then it gives them plenty of time to come up with a long-term solution. Hopefully it's the ballot initiative supported and advocated for by their commission and their neighborhood associations. And otherwise, they can come up with a different funding solution, which, would also be helpful. And we have plenty of time to do that. So I do stand by my motion as I've made it, and by my commitment to you that should they come up with a different funding source, I will modify the transfer fee and the convention center payment. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To Miami Beach, I think the message being sent by the board is landing loud and clear. And while I recognize that Commissioner Higgins' motion is not going to be effectuated until you all ratify it, I'm hoping that the length of discussion that's being spent here, you recognize that this board is prioritizing homelessness and that you all need to pay your fair share. And so whatever deal you come up with, I think it's important that you came on the microphone, Commissioner Suarez, and committed to putting this back on the ballot, because I do think that that's a critically important element, because it's possible that the voters of Miami Beach say, we don't want this tax, and then that becomes the end of the discussion. So I really would like for, as Commissioner Bermudez suggested, for you all, and that includes the commissioners of the district, the developer on the RDA hotel, to sit down between now and November 20th and bring us back something that we can accept, that is going to close a hole that you all created by pulling this off the ballot, that's going to assure us that there's going to be a ballot initiative in 2026 that has language that you all feel comfortable with, that you feel is very transparent for your voters, so that we can move forward on this. But I recognize, as Commissioner Bermudez recognized, that the discussion that we're having right now is completely temporary, because you all have to ratify it, and you're not voting on that right now. We don't know what you're going to do. Can you commit that you will have a meeting between now and November 20th, so that when we sit back on this dais, we'll have something concrete from you all that we can look at, that is documented, as you said, Commissioner Suarez, that we can consider, that is considering the concerns of the developer of the convention hotel, that we can, move forward on in a more concrete way. Otherwise, I fear that we are just spinning our wheels, going in circles at this particular juncture, with really great ideas on the table, but we need to move forward by way of firm commitment so that we can land this plane.
Through the chair, thank you. I can commit today that I will request a special meeting. It takes 4 members to do that of our body, or the mayor can unilaterally call a special meeting. And I don't see any issues with that, given the circumstances and the gravity of the situation. That will happen.
Commissioner Higgins, do you find that agreeable for them to have the meeting, sit down, consider your proposal and your motion, have the developer of the Hotel Convention Center join that meeting, have the other district commissioner join the meeting? She's shaking her head.
I'm thrilled you're going to meet on this very important topic of homelessness. I'm very, very happy to see you guys begin to consider how you participate in helping humans. But our protection is for next year. And unless you plan between now and our November 20th meeting to cut us a check for $10 million, which is an option, right? You guys could go back today, Eric, and write us a check. We have a $10 million hole that the Homeless Trust had budgeted for. And the surplus is not $10 million, by the way, so we're still not being made whole in this, right? So this just plugs part of the hole. We still need to put some chewing gum in the rest of it, but that's okay. I believe we pass this. It does not impact the funding of the Convention Center Hotel. It does not impact the City of Miami Beach's budget this year, nor a single resident this year. And then they can have a special meeting. If they come back with a long-term solution, then we will work on it. But this plugs the hole for this year with no impact on a single resident in Miami Beach, nor the pocketbook of a city of Miami Beach resident. This money is sitting in the bank doing nothing this year, and we can help humans. So with that, I stand by my motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you for that clarification. But to the attorneys, when you reiterated in the way that you do, is it a misunderstanding of mine that Miami Beach still needs to ratify and accept that? It's being made as a motion as if it's going to be solidified here at the board today. Is it not the case that Miami Beach still needs to consider it, call it up for a vote, and have them, is that to the attorneys? Can I please have clarification on that?
That is correct, Commissioner. As the resolution that was previously passed, once this board passes what it is doing with the form of agreements as amended, if voted, Miami Beach then goes back and the agency then goes back and votes on that. How the resolution was laid out, as long as what they pass is substantially conforms to what the board passed, then the mayor has the right to approve that. If it's not substantially in compliance, then it would come back to our office and the board to then have to determine whether or not they want to move forward.
So, Commissioner Higgins and Cohen-Higgins, I don't see your points as mutually exclusive. I think that within the approval of her motion, this can go to them. They can discuss it. If they approve it, that's fine. If you don't approve it, send something back.
Correct.
Send something back.
We've done this before. You can appoint someone. You can appoint, Higgins is like, I'm done with these people. I feel you. But I mean, that's the other thing that you could do, that if they reach an impasse, right, we can appoint someone to at least, when is your next meeting? That's the other issue. Like, when is your next meeting?
The November 20th.
Right, so you would need a special meeting,
We
right?
also have a presentations
Mr.
and
Chair.
awards meeting on the 13th that we might be able to.
Sounds like a good idea. Good man.
Back on.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
the pause that I have remains the same in that I understand Commissioner Higgins' motion. I support Commissioner Higgins' motion. But should Miami Beach, for whatever the reason, decide not to accept that motion, we don't have a recourse after that. My question becomes then, right? I mean, if they don't accept it, we can't unilaterally amend. They say no for whatever the reason. I'm hoping that they do, but assuming that they don't, we're still in the same position.
Well, no, hold on. We're not in the same position because the item is before us again anew. So we're sending an item over to them. If they choose not to accept it, we don't have a deal on a convention center hotel. That's the challenge. And that's why we would be asking you to send us something. If you don't accept it, I hope that you accept it. But if you don't, send us something back.
We can reconsider again. We do have a procedural, we can reconsider again. We can reconsider at the next meeting. Since we're voting at this meeting, we can reconsider at the next meeting. So ideally, you would bring us something back, but we could reconsider again.
It'll be easier if they actually send something back. And to Mr. Manager, or accept it, or send something back. But we would love a long-term fix sent back to us in lieu of a one-year plug. But if we can't, we'll take the one-year plug. That's where we are. Okay.
The CRA on the same agenda.
Yes.
Through the chair, thank you. I think it's very important that there's a good faith effort, and as I wanted to address some of your concerns, Commissioner Regalado, that the county may not like the way we spend for our homeless services. We were told by the homeless chair that he would make us whole if this ballot measure passed. So what does that mean? That means he's on record saying that he's going to give Miami Beach back the $5.2 million that we spend, which is why I'm saying let's split the difference. I can't do that. Only the commissioner can. That instead of the 10 million, make it 4.8 because that's on record. You are more than welcome to recognize Mr. Book to clarify his remarks and see if that is true. And I think if you come to the Miami Beach and say, look, this is under these circumstances, it's 4.8 instead of 10, because we already spend 5. Really, we spend 7 between police, park rangers, code, sanitation, et cetera. But I'm not going to split hairs. If it's 4.8, it's going to be a much easier lift for my colleagues to swallow. until the 26 ballot. So that's the only friendly amendment that I would suggest.
Commissioner, I think the challenge is a couple of things. The first thing is, I see Mr. Book sitting there, and he didn't disagree with the make you whole statement, but there's a difference between making you whole until you put it on the ballot, but you just added 2 years to the making you whole paradigm because you took it off the ballot. So I don't know that we should be making you whole or discounting it because you all took something off the ballot. That's the first thing. The second thing is, and this speaks to what Commissioner Regalado was speaking about, I don't get into what you call homeless prevention, but when we talk about providing for homelessness, I think we're talking about beds and meals. You all are counting in your 7 million police, which is a very expensive employee.
That's above the 5.2.
So I mean, but we don't necessarily, and so but I don't want to get into that. I do think that if Commissioner Higgins' item passed, I would suggest you all accept it and still work on a long-term deal. If you and your colleagues, because I'm not uniquely talking to you, because I speak to all of you as equal peers, if you chose not to, sending us something back that we could reasonably consider, I think would probably be the appropriate. And I think that your manager probably has a better idea of where pots of money are that you can supplement things from and what's available in the RDA. I think that we can get there. I am not involved in Miami Beach politics, and I have no desire to be. I am not in the business of disliking any of you all, except for Alex. I don't really know you all that well. And he's cool. I just want a solution. If this is a short-term solution that I hope that you can accept, if you can't accept it, I hope you come back to us with a long-term solution. That's all I want. And I don't think that's being unreasonable. Commissioner, you...
Just a quick point of clarification. What is before us is a reconsideration on the entire vote that we took on the hotel convention center. So as it stands right now, that deal is not approved. Is that correct to the attorneys? Correct? Okay. So, and with this, if Commissioner Higgins' motion passes, would that be approved or would it be a contingent approval? The reason I'm asking is because dollars and cents and millions of dollars and business people are taking steps and things of that sort. And we had the main developer come to the microphone and articulate that he didn't know whether or not these proposed changes would affect that deal, a deal, again, that took over 7 years to come before the board. And so what I don't want is what we like to call unintended consequences to result where something ends up being a critical issue for that development deal that we're not here considering now. We're focusing on homelessness as we should. We need to find the money. We need to work together in a collegial manner. But I'm not sure that I understand, quite frankly, whether or not we are considering the potential financial implications of hurting that deal. Because they, 2 weeks ago, had a piece of paper that said the Board of County Commissioners of Miami-Dade County approves this deal. They're going to go get financing. They're going to go put all these pieces of the puzzle together. Now, that has been reversed. And it is going to continue to be reversed for another 2 to 3 weeks until November 20th, pending your vote and then our vote, and the entire hotel convention deal lies in the balance. I just don't know that we are giving sufficient weight to the business and financial implications that has, especially when 2 weeks ago we articulated so vehemently how much this hotel convention deal meant to the economy of Miami-Dade County and to Miami Beach. So I just want us to weigh that, and I'm not sure that I feel comfortable allowing a deal of that size with that much work put in to just kind of blow in the wind for the next month, arguably. That is a legitimate concern. So, Commissioner Higgins, I don't know if there is an answer to that concern. That is a legitimate concern. It was your item. So what is the answer to that concern, if any?
We are considering the financial implications on the developer, and I don't take it lightly, but it's when we boil this down to actually what it is. let's start with the Convention Center Hotel. The residents of Miami Beach actually have voted several times, right? They voted to allow for this. They voted not to spend any public money on it. Any of their money on it. That's what they voted. That's the residents of Miami Beach voted not to spend any of their money on it. So we, understanding that we wanted to get done and it would be a benefit to the county and not just the residents of Miami Beach and not just the citizens of Miami Beach, we said, okay, let's figure it out. Let's figure out the financing. This doesn't necessarily affect the financing because it doesn't change the financial obligations to the developer. What it does do, what will affect it, is if they don't approve it. If they don't approve it and it takes more time, that's what brings it into effect. Nothing more. So it's from my perspective, we're giving general fund dollars, we're releasing general fund dollars to help build an asset that's going to really, really help the residents in the city of Miami Beach and the entire county that they did not want to spend their public money on. We're spending our public money on. Now, do I want to jeopardize the hotel? No, not at all. I want us to build the Convention Center Hotel. I want that built. But I understand just from the short time of having these conversations with folks on Miami Beach that if you don't get something solid in front of people, like in writing, there's no guarantees. So we need to at least give ourselves the opportunity. Listen, if this board wants to delegate to Commissioner Higgins the ability to enter negotiations and finalize it with them without coming back to this board, I'm okay with that. I don't have a problem with that. I don't have a problem with delegating that. I don't have a problem delegating to the mayor, to Carla Denise, to Jimmy, to you know what, the vice chairman. Where's the vice chairman? I don't have a problem us delegating that to the vice chairman. I believe that he will be the next chairman. I don't have a problem delegating that.
Wishful thinking.
So I don't, but I do know that we can't let the moment pass and lose this leverage point. Raquel.
Thank you. Just as a point of clarification, because I think there was some confusion as to the procedural stuff, so that we're all on the same page. I don't think anyone here wants to blow up the hotel. We're making this change because of the decisions that you all made. Okay. If you don't approve it and this thing goes sideways, we can always reconsider at the next meeting and fix this hotel. But then we're going after the CRA. So just so for clarity's sake, right? And when we go after the CRA, that gets that feels a little bit more toxic because we could just pull a ripcord on the whole baby on that one. I mean, we can. So I just think that it's important for us to understand that we do have certain procedural options within the next month. And I understand that this has been brewing for a very long time, but you have put us in a position where we have to negotiate this way. And I don't think any of us want to negotiate this way. So that's why I said to name someone, to try to figure out a solution. We don't really care where the money comes from. We just need you to pay for your piece of the homeless situation. That's really what this is about. If you want to put it on the ballot, if you want to do it that way, if that's better, if you don't, that's fine. We just need a commitment so that we can continue dealing with the homeless issue that we have countywide. And my concern about how you spend it is to the point that they were brought up, with the police and dropping them off in the city of Miami. It's not okay. It's not okay. So it's difficult for us to approve that as an expenditure. It's difficult for us, right? Because we're the ones that have to deal with that. So and again, you are welcome to meet with any of us individually and talk about these items. But I really think we will have a resolution on November 20th, one way or another. And I hope that you meet on the 13th. Call the question.
Yes, Mr. Chair, having recently done a flight simulator and successfully landed, let's try to land this plane today. And I make a motion to call the question, sir.
Before you call the question,
we are a collegial body. Is it short, Senator?
Yeah, it's just short. I still, Mr. Chairman, I appreciate all the dialogue and conversation that we've had. And I appreciate where the Miami Beach is coming from. I just don't know if this I still think this puts the convention deal in jeopardy. I'm not convinced that this does not do anything to the convention deal. And notice what we're doing. We're mixing two issues. And I get it. Leverage, whatever's worth. But I don't think this is the right leverage to use with the city of Miami Beach right now as it relates to homeless and it relates to the convention center. So I just can't vote for this item that's before us right now.
Thank you. You called. It's been moved and seconded. We'll call the question. All in favor of Commissioner Higgins' motion, signify by saying aye.
Can we do?
Aye. Okay. Those opposed? It passes.
Clarify
You did.
that
I counted.
the Convention Center Hotel with this amendment.
Hialeah needs to be able to tax its hotels, Senator. That's just I'm saying. So go to Tallahassee and follow their steps.
If I may have a moment, Eric, after your meeting on the 13th, let's you and I have a conversation. Okay? Thanks.
Listen, another thing. Do we want to make a motion, or entertain a motion to designate a commissioner, an individual? I'm not going to name anyone, obviously, to negotiate with them directly.
Yes.
Do we want
I
to do
think-
that?
I think that's the right thing to do. I think that'll save us all some heartache.
Second. I thought she.
Okay.
I think yeah.
Renee?
I would move to have.
So,
Hold on,
Senator
Commissioner.
Commissioner Higgins would be my motion to be.
Okay.
Second.
yeah, I'm happy to do this. I'll be working with the city administration, so I'll work through the administration. Thank you.
All right.
I seconded it, so
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
aye.
Those opposed? All right. She's designated.
Through the chair.
Oh, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Just to clarify that county staff will join in those.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. We're going to need them. We're going to need